Chapter 1623. Yangchen didn't know that he was on the Xintian sect's must-kill list. After sending the women away, Yangchen took Gao Yu and Gong Sunling back to Chunyang Palace. The sect would be very busy from now on. Many people would come to visit. There were only a few people in the sect, so Yangchen's family had to take care of things. In addition, Yangchen was also thinking about safety. Since he had given the idea to the five sect, it was inevitable that the other sect would be jealous. They would come to Yangchen and force Yangchen to speak. Yangchen didn't care. He was afraid that some jealous people would use Chunyang Palace to threaten Yangchen. Therefore, during this period of time, Yangchen would definitely let Elder Bug stay in the sect. These days, Yangchen patiently taught Elder Bug a lot of things. He didn't dare to say anything else, but he was more than enough to tell whether someone was a bad guest or not. With Elder Bug's character and instincts, those who came to fight would only have one ending. Just like those who disappeared from the Gourd Valley, they would enter the stomachs of countless celestial devouring insects and become Elder Bug's nourishment. Chunyang Palace was temporarily safe, so Yangchen was relieved. However, Yangchen didn't stay in the sect. Instead, he went directly to the place where the market was to be built. The choice of this place was also very reasonable. Since he was going to do it, Yangchen had to do it himself. The news had already been released. He believed that people would soon come to meet with the sect. Some people would also come to talk to Yangchen. Yangchen quietly waited in this area, waiting for someone to take the initiative to come to him. To Yangchen's surprise, the first person to come to Yangchen was not the person Yangchen was expecting to talk to about building the market. Instead, it was three experts who wanted to kill him. Among the three of them, one was an early-stage Heaven Immortal, while the other two were peak Earth Immortals. Judging from the current power exposed by Chunyang Palace, if these three people attacked together, it was enough to destroy the whole Chunyang Palace. But these three masters only dealt with Yangchen alone. Evil creature, how dare you? Surrender now. Yangchen, who was the first to discover the killing intent, dodged a casual attack from one of the earthly immortals with incredible speed and shouted, "You still dare to be so stubborn, even in the face of death." Hearing Yangchen's righteous rebuke, the three of them were instantly enraged. Not too long ago, the three of them were treated as seniors and experts wherever they went. How could anyone dare to insult them with such words? Yangchen was originally a person who deserved to die, and now there was another reason for him to die. It's not you guys. Yangchen's disappointed voice fell into the ears of the three of them, making them very puzzled. What did he mean by not you guys? Was Yangchen still waiting for someone? This was possible. They also found this opportunity when they learned that Yangchen was here waiting for the people of the major sect to come and negotiate. Yangchen said it was not you guys, so they were not the people Yangchen was waiting for. No one would specifically wait to kill their own people at this time, right? A Heaven Immortal Master and two peak Earth Immortals to deal with a small human Immortal Junior could only be described as making a fuss over a minor issue. However, considering that they wanted to completely seize Yangchen's assets, the configuration of the three masters was the most likely plan to capture Yangchen. The three of them also planned in this way, but no matter how perfect the plan was, sometimes it could not keep up with the changes. For example, now, they were a little puzzled by the sudden appearance of countless dark red flying insects. These flying insects looked very weak. On average, they were only at the level of peak nascent soul, which was the ordinary level of the descendants of some native demons. At any time, they could easily pinch one to death. However, there were too many flying insects now, and they couldn't kill them all. Not everyone knew that there were some strange, celestial devouring insects in the Gourd Cave that could devour almost everything. The Gourd Cave was a place where some frustrated rogue cultivators gathered. How could the people of the big sects be interested in the things in that place? Only the recent appearance of a Heaven Immortal spiritual vein could make them pay more attention, but it was just attention, not attention. This kind of high and mighty mentality also determined that they were doomed to be miserable this time. They thought that they could easily deal with these weak flying insects But in the end, they were trapped in a sea of celestial devouring insects. Elder Bug did not follow Yang Chun, but stayed in Chunyang Palace. However, Elder Bug separated a clone to accompany Yang Chun around to protect Yang Chun's safety. A clone of a Grand Supreme Golden Immortal was almost at the level of a 4th-grade Fairy Immortal. It was more than enough to deal with an early-stage Fairy Immortal and 2 peak Earth Immortals. Not to mention that the 3 guys did not know the power of the celestial devouring insects. When their magic weapons, and even the divine sense attached to the magic weapons began to be devoured, the 3 realized that something was wrong. Unfortunately, at this point, surrounded by the celestial devouring insects, they had no chance to escape. They were surrounded by celestial devouring insects, almost impervious to water and fire, and they ate everything. Not to mention anything else, just the backlash caused by the erosion of their divine sense was enough to make them suffer. In the desperate eyes of the 3 guys, Yang Chun did not even forget to snatch food from Elder Bug. The blood demon vine flying sword went straight through the chest of the Fairy Immortal Master and sucked away all the blood in his body. The blood of a Fairy Immortal Master. This was the first time that the blood demon vine flying sword had tasted it, and it was enough to upgrade this Ewood flying sword by at least 1 grade. With the clone of Elder Bug, Yang Chun did not even have to destroy the corpses. The 3 guys fell into the belly of the celestial devouring insects, leaving no trace. Except for Yang Chun and the guy who appointed the 3, no one knew that the 3 of them had been here. Although the 3 people did not identify themselves, Yang Chun could recognize one of them was an Earth Immortal Master. They should all be from the Profound Heaven sect. In his previous life, Yang Chun had been chased by that guy, which made Yang Chun suffer a lot. The scene was still vivid in Yang Chun's mind. The famous guy actually died so quietly. He believed that if he knew in the underworld, he would also regret why he took such a task. It should be about time for the killers of the Profound Heaven sect to come. Yang Chun never thought that the Profound Heaven sect would not pursue him for killing young Master Xian. Now it was time for the Profound Heaven sect to settle accounts with a lot of people. This time, a Fairy Immortal Master has been dispatched. Presumably, the higher-ups should be coming directly, right? Yang Chun waited for the avatar of Old Bug to clean up the mess. He held his chin and began to guess. After thinking of some scenarios, Yang Chun couldn't help but smile. If the higher-ups of the Taishaman find out that Chunyang Palace is probably the biggest chess piece arranged by the Taishaman, I wonder if they will do their best to help the development of Chunyang Palace? Yang Chun thought of that possibility and smiled mysteriously. Chapter 1624. The story of the Gourd Valley on Yinluo Mountain had slowly spread. A young man had stayed in the Gourd Valley for 10 years and then killed all the experts from the formless sect of the White Tiger Hall, leaving no trace behind. Ordinary cultivators would not think of the identity of the young man, but as long as the people of the 5 major sects used their brains a little, they could understand that the young man in people's mouths must be Yang Chun. No one knew the secret of Yinluo Mountain except for Yang Chun. If someone else knew about it, they wouldn't have made a move at this time. Whether it was the time or the whereabouts, it all pointed to Yang Chun himself. The 5 great sect didn't care much about what Yang Chun could get. They only needed to ask around in the Gourd Valley to know that there was almost nothing there except for a large number of celestial devouring insects. Now, that there was only a peak Fairy Immortal level spiritual vein left in the Gourd Valley, it could only mean one thing. Yang Chun must have taken away the celestial devouring insect. For a small sect in the spiritual realm, a powerful insect like the celestial devouring insect that could protect the sect was definitely something worth going crazy over. But for the 5 great sect, it was a little useless. It was just that Yang Chun would rather expose a peak Fairy Immortal level spiritual vein to take away the celestial devouring insect. Wasn't this really picking sesame seeds and losing watermelons? If he cooperated with any of the 5 great sect, he wouldn't have lost a Fairy Immortal level spiritual vein in vain, right? At the thought of this, the people of the 5 great sect were a little worried, especially the people of the 4 great sect. After all, Yang Chun had some discord with the Black Heaven sect, because he killed their disciple. But the four great sect had always had a good relationship with Yang Chun. It was just because they didn't take Yang Chun seriously in the beginning that Yang Chun released such a big firework to let them see clearly and understand Yang Chun's value. Only one fairy immortal level spiritual vein was found on Yinluo Mountain. The huge Yinluo Mountain would not only have so few benefits. The other places, the Demon Buster Valley, the Chessboard Mountain, and the Ice Rock, were all promising places. They couldn't let Yang Chun throw away these benefits in vain. Speaking of it, Yang Chun, this little guy was really a fiend. As soon as he ascended from the mortal world, he killed Profound Heaven Sect's young master, Yi Xian, and his entourage. Then, he killed more than 100 people from Kaiman sect. In less than 10 years, more than 1,000 people of the Yinluo Mountain died in hatred. Before and after, in just over a decade, more than 1,000 people had died in Yang Chun's hands. Among them, there was no lack of Earth Immortal level experts. So far, Yang Chun was just a young man who had just reached the 4th grade of Human Immortal. After ascending, his cultivation had not increased. No one deaded cultivator dared to say that they had such fierce performance when they just ascended from the immortal world had just ascended. But when it came to Yang Chun, people didn't feel that it was out of place at all. Especially those who had heard of Yang Chun's deeds in the mortal world, they felt it was natural. A little guy who could kill a late-stage, great ascension stage expert when he was in the foundation establishment stage. No matter what he did, it would not be surprising. Not long after dealing with the corpses of the 3 experts, Yang Chun waited for the people from the 5 major sects to come meet him. After meeting, Yang Chun found that except for the Mystic Heaven sect, the people from the 4 major sects were all acquaintances. Only the expert from the Mystic Heaven sect, who should have ascended a long time ago, didn't know Yang Chun very well. He looked arrogant, but his etiquette was thorough. If he didn't look at his face, it would definitely be misunderstood. Yang Chun could understand this guy's displeasure. He had just killed 3 experts before. Needless to say, it was definitely related to the Mystic Heaven sect. Before and after, he didn't believe that this guy didn't know. Since Yang Chun was safe and sound, then the 3 masters sent before did not do a good job or had an accident. It would be strange if their faces were good. Grandmaster Yang, I trust you have been well. The speaker was Elder Shi Yinhe of the Blue Cloud sect. When she was in the mortal world, she was the law enforcement hall master of the Blue Cloud sect. Now after ascending, her cultivation was not very high, but her status was still there. When she was in the mortal world, she and Yang Chun were also old acquaintances, and they got along well. This time, she was the most suitable candidate to contact Yang Chun, besides Sun Qingxue and Hua Wanning. The Green Jade Immortal Island was represented by Elder Min of Minhua Feng, who was also an acquaintance. The 5 Elements sect and the Qingquan sect were no exception. All of them were old acquaintances who had dealt with Yang Chun in the mortal world. Counting the time when Yang Chun visited his wives and concubines one by one, this should be the 2nd time after ascending. They were all acquaintances, so Yang Chun didn't hold back. Regardless of the faces of the masters of the Mystic Heaven sect, he made his own request. Anyway, no matter what, the people of the Mystic Heaven sect had to follow him, and it was impossible to give them special treatment. In this place, this junior wants to build a large market. Yang Chun pointed to the place under his feet and said unceremoniously, "The market should be built in the hinterland of the mountain, built on the rock. All the construction will be provided by the sect, and after it is built, it will be paid for by my Chunyang Palace." The place that Yang Chun pointed to was somewhere in the Sunset Rock. The market that Yang Chun said was built in the hinterland of the mountain, which was exactly the style of the Sunset Rock in his memory. As long as a huge array was built outside the Sunset Rock, the entire Sunset Rock would become the most suitable fortress. It would be accessible in all directions, and there would be all kinds of shops. Now that he mentioned it, it would only bring forward the construction in the future, and the preparation would be much more complete. Obviously, the representative of the Mystic Heaven sect was completely not used to Yang Chun's straightforward negotiation method. He frowned and said, "We will provide the manpower and materials, and all the benefits will belong to Chunyang Palace. What can we get in return?" Before the people of the other four sects had time to speak, the representative of the Mystic Heaven sect directly said what they wanted to say. Everyone was happy to be reserved and just looked at Yang Chun, waiting for him to answer. "Senior, what do you want?" Yang Chun didn't directly answer the question of the representative of the Mystic Heaven sect. Instead, he asked a question. Everyone was stumped by the question. They didn't know what was in the mountains in front of the Sunset Rock, so how could they make their own requests? After thinking about it, the representative of the Mystic Heaven sect said patiently, "The spirit meridian must be at least of the sky immortal grade. If they could get a sky immortal grade spirit meridian, the investment would not be in vain." Sky immortal grade spirit meridian? No problem. Yang Chun didn't want to think about it directly, and then immediately asked, "How many do you want?" This sentence immediately shocked the people of the 5 great sections. Celestial immortal grade spirit veins. And he still asked how many of them he wanted. Were there many here? What was going on? Chapter 16:25. The representative of a Shintian sect had only mentioned it casually and did not expect Yang Chen to agree. However, after hearing Yang Chen's answer, he was at a loss and did not know what to do. Even if all the work was done by the people of the 5 major sects, the people who came to the market to do business would still have to make money. How much could the construction cost be? But how much was a heaven immortal spirit vein worth? No one believed that Yang Chun could not figure it out. Heaven immortal spirit veins were not everywhere. Among the 5 major sects, the Shintian sect's mountain gate was only built on a place where 10 heaven immortal spirit veins gathered. The other 4 sects' mountain gates were about the same, with no more than 10 at most. At most, there were a few more earth immortal spirit veins at the places where they gathered. On this side, Yang Chun asked about the spiritual veins of the heaven immortal level. How could it not shock everyone? If it was just a sect, they might be able to ask for a few more spirit veins. However, the people of the 5 major sects were all present. 4 of them had a good relationship with Chunyang Palace and were even more familiar with Yang Chun. In the face of Yang Chun, they could not ask for an outrageous price. Not to mention a few heaven immortal spirit veins. Even half a heaven immortal spirit vein would be a great bargain. But how were they going to divide half a heaven immortal spirit vein among the 5 major sects? The relationship between the Shintian sect and the other sects was not as harmonious as before. If they shared a spirit vein, wouldn't the disciples of a Shintian sect be squeezed to death by the people of the other 4 sects? What if you won the prolongation pill? Elder Shur of the Blue Cloud sect also felt embarrassed. After thinking for a moment, he changed his request. A heaven immortal spirit vein was a major event related to the development of a sect. It involved the cultivation of the entire sect's disciples. Relatively speaking, the prolongation pill, which could only give a person a lifespan, was much less valuable. At least that was the case from the perspective of the sect. Even so, for those experts who urgently needed the prolongation pill, it was a life-saving treasure. How much was a heaven immortal expert worth? In any case, it was much more than building a market. That's fine too. 4 revolutions life-prolonging pill for each family. Yang Chen's answer was also straightforward. Now Chunyang Palace's foundation was poor, so they needed to pay more. It was unrealistic to pursue equality unilaterally. However, in exchange for the prolonging life pills, the people of the 5 great sect would have to accept this favor. They couldn't just build a market and solve all their problems. Even if Yang Chun was willing, they wouldn't be able to overcome this obstacle. This was not the time to take things by force. What he owed was a favor, and when there were too many favors, it would become karma. It was hard to say. However, for the 4 great sects, aside from the mysterious heaven sect, there was not much difference between owing half a life extension pill and half a life extension pill. In any case, they already had a deep cooperation in the mortal world, so this small favor was just a normal thing to do in return. However, since we want the prolonging life pills, then the things in the territory in front of the Sunset Rock will have to be calculated separately. Yang Chun made it clear that the 5 great sect couldn't take all the benefits. There had to be gains and losses. Only then did everyone remember that they had come here because they had received news from their female disciple, who was Yang Chen's concubine. She wanted them to take over the large area in front of the Sunset Rock. There was no need to ask. There had to be good things in there, but Yang Chun didn't specify. At this time, they needed to weigh the pros and cons. The things in the territory would definitely not run away. It was just a matter of getting them sooner or later. However, if they missed this opportunity, it would not be so easy to get a few prolonging life pills from Yang Chun. It had to be known that the raw materials for the prolonging life pills were limited, and there were only so many of them left. The representative of the Mysterious Heaven sect immediately said, "The Mysterious Heaven sect wants the prolonging life pills." What could there be in the territory? It was nothing more than a spirit vein, mineral deposit, or some kind of resource. As long as they occupied the territory, the things would be there sooner or later. Speaking of resources, were the resources of the Mysterious Heaven sect still lacking? Naturally, they had to get the benefits they could see first. To the surprise of the representative of the Mysterious Heaven sect, the representatives of the other four sect didn't make a decision immediately and began to ponder. Seeing the posture of the four people, the representative of the Mysterious Heaven sect couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Was there a need to hesitate about this kind of thing? Grandmaster Yang, if it was Shan Shan who asked, what would you let her choose? Elderman of the Green Jade Immortal Island was very skillful in asking questions. She directly used the name of Sure Shan Shan, so that even if Yang Chun wanted to hide it, it would be too embarrassing. Of course, this was also because the friendship between Elder Min and Yang Chun was not ordinary. Elder Sure of the Blue Cloud sect might also be able to do this. If other people also used this trick, Yang Chun probably wouldn't pay attention to it. If it was Shan Shan, I would suggest that she choose the spirit vein first. When Elderman asked this, Yang Chun was not annoyed and just replied with a casual smile. Why? Elder Sure Yinha of the Blue Cloud sect was straightforward and immediately asked. Although the two representatives of the Five Elements sect and the Chinquin sect did not speak, they also pricked up their ears and waited for Yang Chen's explanation. At this time, even the representative of the Mysterious Heaven sect wanted to hear what Yang Chun said. Several seniors have not been to the Gourd Cave in Yinluo Mountain, so it is normal that you don't know. Yang Chun said slowly with a smile on his face. In fact, as long as you carefully study the newly discovered spirit vein, you can know that that place is actually not a spirit vein at all, but a way to gather the spirit power of several surrounding spirit veins, so that the surrounding few spirit veins are small earth, immortal level spirit veins. He didn't say much, but the information revealed was very amazing. The spirit power of the spirit vein could actually be transferred. How is this possible? For so many years in the spiritual world, everyone followed the law of where the spirit vein was, the cultivator would be there. If the spirit power of the spirit vein could be extracted to form a new spirit vein in another place, then what was the point of occupying the original spirit vein? If this was the case, it meant that if they chose the longevity pill now, even if there was a spirit vein on their own land, it was likely that someone would use some mysterious method to extract the spirit power to other places to form a new spirit vein. Everyone present was smart, and they immediately understood how to choose. The Mysterious Heaven sect disregarded everything and chose a longevity pill. This was probably a big loss. They originally thought that things in their own territory couldn't run away, but now it was very likely that they would lose a heaven immortal level spirit vein for a longevity pill. This time, it was estimated that the sect master of the Mysterious Heaven sect would directly kill the guy who had just made the decision on his own. The Green Jade Immortal Island wants the spirit vein. At this point, what else could be said? Elder Min immediately gave her own answer. The Blue Cloud sect also wants the spirit vein. The Five Elements sect wants the spirit vein. The Chinquin sect wants the spirit vein. Chapter 16:26. The eyes of the Mysterious Heaven sect's representative almost popped out when he saw that all four sects had chosen the spirit vein after Yang Chen's explanation. His intestines turned green with regret. If Yang Chen had explained a bit earlier, who would have chosen the prolonging life pill? No matter how precious the prolonging life pill was, it was only for one person. However, a celestial spirit vein was a powerful resource that could allow tens of thousands of disciples to cultivate. To put it bluntly, those who needed the prolonging life pill were pitiful wretches who could not ascend normally. Without the prolonging life pill, they were complete failures. The mysterious heaven sect representative had chosen the prolonging life pill, which meant that they had chosen a failure and given up on countless promising disciples. No matter how one looked at it, this was a huge joke. What did it mean to pick up sesame seeds and lose watermelons? This was it. It was completely conceivable that at least one of the spirit veins in the mysterious heaven sect's territory would definitely become the property of the other four great sects because of his choice. However, the mysterious heaven sect's representative could not change his mind even if he was beaten to death. When the sect did things, they had to be honest, especially in front of the representatives of the other four great sects. They could not go back on their words no matter what. Apart from being humiliated, the mysterious heaven sect's representative could only grit his teeth in secret. However, there was another piece of information revealed by Yang Chen's words that shocked all the representatives. The spirit force in the spirit vein could actually be absorbed in a unique way. What kind of heaven-defying method was this? Right now was not the time to investigate whether it was one or two spirit veins. They had to know what kind of method it was. There were no idiots in the five great sects, and everyone had the same thought. At this time, who would bother with Yangchun for a small market? Who wouldn't want to rush back to the sect as soon as possible and then send people to Yinluo Mountain's Gourd Valley to take a closer look at what was going on? Unfortunately, they still had to give Yangchun an explanation, so they could only wait patiently. Whether it was the prolonging life pill or the spirit vein, the value of a small market could not be made up for. Regardless of whether it was a favor or karma, there had to be a concrete explanation. Grandmaster Yang, in this case, in addition to the construction of this market, my green jade Immortal Island, in the future, if Chunyang Palace has any errands, just say it. If I can do it, my green jade Immortal Island will never refuse. Elder Min had already experienced Yang Chen's power in the mortal world. Of course, she wouldn't wait for Yang Chen to take the initiative to speak and immediately stated her position. The Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island have always advanced and retreated together. Elder Min Huafeng had just finished speaking, and Elder Shi Yinhe over there immediately expressed the same meaning. Since the two sects had opened their mouths, the Five Elements sect and the Chinquan sect certainly couldn't be left behind, and they immediately followed suit. Anyway, the worst was a fairy-level spirit vein. In exchange for supporting the still weak Chunyang Palace, they would never suffer a loss. After asking about the location of the four sects' territories, Yang Chun thought for a moment and then gave each of the four representatives a jade slip, which recorded the location of a fairy-level spirit vein in each sect. Watching the four sect get the jade slip that recorded the location of the spirit vein, but their own sect could only get a 4 revolutions life-prolonging pill, the representative of the profound heaven sect was even more upset at this moment. However, things had already come to this point, and he had no face to change his words. He could only blame himself for being greedy and not asking more before making a decision. Looking at the appearance of the Green Jade Immortal Island, if he had asked more about Tout Junkie at the time, maybe he could have gotten an important hint. Fortunately, the so-called spirit guiding array that Yang Chan mentioned was not hidden from him, so he knew something. The only thing he could do now was to hurry back to the sect and pass the news to the sect, so that the sect could send an array master to study the spirit guiding array in the Gourd Cave, so as not to fall behind. In addition, everyone also confirmed one thing. That was, Yang Chun was indeed the mysterious young man who appeared in the Gourd Cave. When they thought that Yang Chun could easily kill thousands of cultivators who were stronger than him, everyone couldn't help but marvel in their hearts. This young man was really getting more and more unfathomable. The mountains in front of the Sunset Rock were taken by the 5 sects, and almost without any obstacles, they fell into the hands of the 5 sections. Before the other sect could react, in the vast mountains, there were 5 more branches of the 5 major sects. The speed was simply too fast. Compared with the time it took for Yang Chun to get a piece of land, it was like heaven and earth. The original owners of the land didn't even dare to say half a word. They obediently handed over the land, took the benefits, and left. Not to mention playing any tricks, they didn't even dare to think about it. The idea of attacking the 5 major sects at the same time. Did they think that their own sect was not destroyed fast enough? The matter on the Sunset Rock side was considered to have come to an end, but Yang Chun did not relax. This time, it could be regarded as a small scheme against the Mysterious Heaven sect. The Mysterious Heaven sect had suffered this loss and would not let it go so easily. Even if Yang Chun was in the right, the Mysterious Heaven sect would still feel that their sect had suffered a loss. In any case, since there were already people killing their way over, there would be more of these kinds of things in the future. Some things simply didn't need to be said. Not long after Yang Chun sent off the representatives of the 5 major sect, someone appeared in front of Yang Chun almost immediately after. This time, it wasn't the people of the 5 major sect, but a few rogue cultivators who came out of nowhere. They were aggressive, and it was obvious that they didn't intend to have a good talk with Yang Chun. The people of the 5 major sect have already left. Hand over the prolonging life pill recipe and the celestial devouring insect, and we'll spare your life. Seeing that the 6 people on his side had surrounded Yang Chun, the Earth Celestial Cultivator in the lead spoke viciously to Yang Chun. When the representatives of the 5 major sect were here, these people didn't even dare to show up. Although the representatives of the 5 major Earth Celestial sect were all at the human immortal realm, none of the 6 Earth Celestial experts dare to show up. Sometimes, a powerful sect could bring a strong deterrent to others. After Yang Chun got the celestial devouring insect, it wasn't just 1 or 2 people who guessed it. These people in front of him were obviously some of those clever people. Unfortunately, they were too clever and thought that no one would be able to stop them after they let the representatives of the 5 major sect go. Sigh. Yang Chun shook his head directly. His regretful look made people feel uncomfortable. Why are you so good at picking the right time to do this kind of thing when my sworn brother is here? Even if you're in a hurry to die, you shouldn't be in such a hurry, right? You're courting death. The leader looked at Yang Chun as if he was looking at a dead man. He was definitely the first person he had seen who dared to speak so carelessly in this situation. Chapter 16:27. Great Principle, Golden Immortal? What's going on? Li Chung immediately became interested. The appearance of a great principal golden immortal in the spiritual world was a big deal, and he had to ask about it in any case. In this regard, Yang Chun could only give a thumbs up and say nothing. In addition to the process, Li Chung had almost seen everything. Didn't need to say anything more. This time, the guy who fell to the ground was scared to death. He still wanted to get up and escape, but his body was no longer listening to him. He could only watch Yang Chun not far away walk over with a smile and squat down to face him. Thanks to the fire seed given by Big Brother, I have refined the consciousness of a great principal golden immortal. The fire seed given by Li Chung. He must know the power of the fire seed. In this regard, Yang Chun also did not conceal it and said it directly. Since Li Chung could see the problem of his divine sense at a glance, maybe he could solve the problem of his divine sense at the root. The fairy-eating bug you want. In Yang Chun's hand, there was suddenly a bright-colored fairy-eating bug, and he stretched it out in front of the guy lying on the ground. The fairy-eating bug, which looked like it was flying high, had been staying at Yang Chun's fingertips, and its 2 huge compound eyes seemed to be staring at the guy in front of it. It gave people endless pressure. Yang Chun himself could find the strings made of dragon whiskers and the string pillars made of dragon bones. It would be strange if Li Chung couldn't see it. Yang Chun was not surprised at all. As he took the ancient zither, he removed the dragon whisker string from the ancient zither. Bodyguard. Li Chung didn't realize this. He simply thought that the fairy-eating bug was Yang Chun's monster pet. After hearing Yang Chun's words, he carefully looked at the fairy-eating bugs. After a while, he took a deep breath and turned to Yang Chun and said, "You can also encounter this kind of heaven-defying luck? What is the level of your main body? Xian Immortal?" "Yes, this is it." Yang Chun looked at the familiar style and was a little surprised. He had worn out iron shoes looking for it, but it didn't take much effort. He planned to spend some effort to find it in the future, but he didn't expect the ancient zither to deliver itself to him. It's a long story. Yang Chun stretched out his hand and made an inviting gesture to brotherly Chung. Then, he summoned the shuttle and transformed it into a room with tables and chairs. Yang Chun took out dozens of wine jars and sat down with Li Chung. There were more than a dozen 10,000-year-old ginsengs, Ganoderma lucidum, and cinnabar fruits. While drinking, he told the story. From the discovery of an immortal body in the mortal world, to the spiritual awareness secret art left behind a spiritual awareness seed, to the later process of being forcibly attacked and then refined by a great principle golden immortal, except for the name of the 3 purity secret art, the other things were explained clearly. I already have 2 dragon whisker strings and 1 dragon bone string pillar. Let's keep the things from Lan Wu Jiao for now. We'll see if we can trade them for other zither. After putting away the dragon whisker string, Yang Chun smiled and replied, "Big brother, you also got this zither. Could it be that you also met the Zhao clan?" Listening to Yang Chen's legendary experience, even Li Chung couldn't help but be surprised. Who could have thought that the consciousness of a great principle, golden immortal, could come to the mortal world in its entirety, and could even follow the connection between Yang Chun and the spiritual awareness seed all the way to the spiritual world? If it weren't for the timely arrival of the white fire seed, Yang Chun might have been refined. As soon as the voice fell, a bright sword light flashed. The head of the leader, who had just said 2 words, flew directly high, and the blood on his neck spurted out like a standing blood fountain. The guy behind Yang Chun didn't have time to see what happened at all. He felt the top of his head tighten, his whole body was lifted up by his hair, and then fell heavily to the ground. Just like that, a large part of the guy's bones were broken, and he could no longer get up. Listening to you, this ancient zither should be a set. There are 2 strings here which are a bit interesting. What about your side? Li Chung saw Yang Chen's affirmation and didn't say much. He directly handed over the ancient zither and asked casually, "I've been looking for them for a long time." Li Chung nodded and said, "Their family is very deep and their plot is very big. There's the smell of yin-yang heaven burning fire on their bodies. My goodness, they're not afraid of fire at all." Li Chung stared at the celestial eating insects, and after pondering for a while, he came to some conclusions. At least this level. Yang Chen nodded and admired Li Cheng's eyesight. Just looking at a few small clones, he could see so much. It was estimated that except for Li Cheng, few people could do it. However, the ancient zither you mentioned, is it like this? Yang Chen said that the way to solve his spiritual awareness problem was to unlock the seal of Elder Insect. The place where Elder Insect was sealed was found by Yang Chun in the ancient zither obtained by the Zhao clan. It happened that Li Chung also had such an ancient zither in the deep mountains. At this time, he took it out and let Yang Chun confirm. Finally, Li Cheng's gaze turned from the celestial eating insects to Yang Chun. After staring at Yang Chun for a while, his face suddenly changed and he frowned. "What happened to your spiritual awareness?" "It was a very accidental opportunity. I got it from the bottom of the gourd valley." For Li Chung, Yang Chun had nothing to hide and quickly replied, "Big brother, this is not my pet. It is my current bodyguard." When he recovered, he immediately saw the 4 so-called watermelons. It wasn't a watermelon. It was clearly the heads of his 4 companions. The one who spoke first was the leader. Among the 6 people, except for him, the other 5 were all beheaded. What else can I say? This kind of great nourishment opportunity, others can't even beg for it. What are you worried about? Listening to Yang Chen ask about the solution to the problem of spiritual awareness, Li Chung rolled his eyes and said, "It hasn't exploded yet, right? When in danger, first improve the cultivation of spiritual awareness. What are you afraid of? There's always a way. Where did you get this new pet?" Li Cheng's figure finally appeared in front of Yang Chun, looking at the miserable state of the guy on the ground, but his face did not change at all. He just looked at the celestial eating insects strangely and asked faintly. Before the guy on the ground could react, the severe pain had already come, and he didn't even wait for him to faint. Immediately after that, there was a series of crackling sounds, and then 4 watermelon-sized things fell to the ground beside him. God knows what kind of fear such a bright and dazzling celestial eating insect would bring to people in such a situation. Anyway, the guy lying on the ground only let out a scream of horror and then directly fell into a coma. But then he was immediately awakened by the pain of thousands of insects biting his body, but he could no longer scream. He could only struggle a few times in vain, and then watched his whole body being surrounded by countless celestial eating insects. Chapter 16:28. When he was in the mortal world, the reason why Yang Chun discovered the Zhao family was that after Li Cheng asked Yang Chun to go to a nameless deserted island, the Zhao family took the initiative to find him. Yang Chun guessed at the time that it was Li Cheng who did it on purpose. Now that Li Cheng confessed that he was looking for the Zhao family, Yang Chun was not surprised at all. The Zhao family was very mysterious. From Long Xian to the Demon Ceiling Formation to the origin of the Demon Continent, they were all related to the ancestors of the Zhao family. These things, any one of them could shock the world, but Yang Chun had never heard of the existence of the Zhao family. The first time they knew about the Zhao family, it was after Yang Chun let out the news that he wanted to sell the secret of the 5th grade alchemist master that the Zhao family appeared. No one knew where the Zhao family came from, and no one knew the origin of the Zhao family. Even the Taishaman had never regarded the Zhao family as a threat. In fact, the power that the Zhao family had at that time, just Long Xian, a 4th grade Earth Immortal, was enough to destroy the Taishaman several times. Li Cheng was looking for the Zhao family, and Yang Chun was also looking for them. There was such a mysterious sect hidden in the dark, and it could open the space barrier in the mortal world to release the demonic qi. Who knew what they would do in the spiritual world? Yang Chun even suspected that the great calamity 1,000 years later was secretly planned by the Zhao family. The Zhao family in the mortal world was destroyed, and these guys in the spiritual world hid deeper. We still came up a little late, otherwise we should have been able to catch more of the tale. Li Cheng said with some regret. If it weren't for some things in the mortal world that couldn't be left behind, he would have ascended long ago. Take it slow, since a few of them have appeared. More and more people will come out in the future. Yang Chun could only persuade at this time, and couldn't do more. And Yang Chun believed that Li Cheng was just sighing in front of him and not really regretting it. It's true that there's no hurry. If we kill more, they will appear sooner or later. As Yang Chun expected, Li Cheng showed his determination in a casual sentence. By the way, the place you chose for Chunyang Palace is not bad. After Li Cheng sighed with emotion, he immediately changed the topic to the territory of Chunyang Palace, Sunset Cliff, Linyang River, and Lihan Sea. If you want resources, there are resources. If you want spiritual veins, there are spiritual veins. With the back of the sea, there is no way out. If you manage Sunset Cliff a little, it will become a great fortress. It's all thanks to Big Brother. Following Li Cheng's words, Yang Chun said a sentence. Of course, he couldn't say that he was reborn and had the memory of his past life. Fortunately, Li Cheng knew that he came out of the immortal executioner stage. Maybe he would think that the people inside told him, so there would not be any problems. However, if the land ahead is dangerous, what will you do? Li Cheng also seemed to have carefully studied the territory of Chunyang Palace. He was very familiar with the distribution of the terrain in this area. He asked the point in one sentence. I'm not talented, so I asked your sisters-in-law to make some small contributions in the sect and let the 5 sects occupy a piece of land respectively. Yang Chun said with a proud smile. Li Cheng pointed at Yang Chun and couldn't say a word for a long time. Finally, he put down his finger resentfully. He didn't know how to describe Yang Chun, so he could only express it with this attitude. Whether the 5 sects got the spiritual veins or occupied the resources, they would never think that they would act as the outer barrier of Chunyang Palace. At that time, they might even be glad that their sect occupied this precious land in advance. Otherwise, they would not even have a place to settle down and would directly become a stray dog. Li Cheng came to Yang Chun just to exchange information about the Zhao family and to remind Yang Chun to manage the territory well. Now it seemed that Yang Chun had already thought about it very thoroughly, so Li Cheng didn't need to worry about it. The two brothers had no other chores, so they chatted with each other about some of their experiences and drank very comfortably. When they were slightly drunk, Yang Chun suddenly thought of something. It just so happened that Li Cheng was beside him, so he could ask for advice. At that moment, he asked directly, "Big brother, my cultivation method has not advanced after I arrived in the spiritual realm. I wonder if Big brother has any good suggestions?" "Your cultivation method?" Li Cheng was stunned. Then he looked at Yang Chun and said slowly, "Don't you have a complete set of Yin-Yang 5 elemental techniques? With your Yin-Yang 5 elemental flying sword, it's a perfect match. What else are you dissatisfied with? Do you feel that your cultivation efficiency is low recently?" Since Yang Chun asked, Li Cheng would answer. He knew that Yang Chun cultivated all the original cultivation methods, but before answering, he still needed to know Yang Chun's current cultivation situation. "I don't have this feeling for the time being." Yang Chun shook his head. "Do you feel that your cultivation method can't adapt to the spiritual pressure of the spiritual realm?" Li Cheng asked again. "A little bit." Yang Chun nodded. It was because of this feeling that Yang Chun felt that his cultivation method was flawed, so he needed a higher-level cultivation method. "Have there been any masters of the spiritual realm who have asked you for the original cultivation method? Or have they also cultivated the original cultivation method?" Li Cheng asked again, this time asking more detailed and thorough. "Yes." Yang Chun remembered that Jing who asked him for the 10th Water True Secret Art, and remembered that Lanning also cultivated the 10th Water True Secret Art, and immediately answered affirmatively. "Then how do you think they solved this problem?" Li Cheng looked at Yang Chun with a smile and asked a question. "I don't know." Yang Chun understood the meaning contained in Li Cheng's question with his heart. He couldn't understand it, but he still answered honestly. Jing, who didn't know the specific situation and directly asked for the 10th Water True Secret Art. However, Lanning had met for a long time and never said that there was a problem with the cultivation method. Could it be that the problem was with him? "You just ascended to the spiritual realm for a few days, and you can't wait?" Li Cheng took a big sip of wine and squinted at Yang Chun. "You are cultivating the original cultivation method. Do you think there is any cultivation method that can be more efficient than the original cultivation method?" Yang Chun didn't know why Li Cheng was scolding him, but he thought that Li Cheng would not harm him, so he just listened honestly and did not refute. "What do you think the original cultivation method you cultivate is? Can it be compared to those trash cultivation methods on the street? Those people have to change their cultivation methods after ascending because their cultivation methods are too bad." Li Cheng didn't care about Yang Chen's feelings at all and continued to scold. "Do you think that any cultivation method can be called the original cultivation method? You are a guy who doesn't know how lucky you are, and you still want to find an advanced cultivation method. Have you really mastered the original cultivation method now? Looking for a donkey while riding a donkey? I have never seen such a stupid person like you." After scolding him, Li Cheng looked cool and ended with this sentence. Chapter 16:29. Yang Chun was scolded and bowed his head without saying a word, but he heard a little meaning from Li Cheng's scolding. It seemed that he did not need to find any advanced cultivation method for the origin cultivation method that he cultivated. Now, he felt that there were some cultivation problems because he had ascended for too short a time and he had not fully adapted to it. However, what did Li Cheng mean when he said that he had truly mastered the origin cultivation method? Yang Chun did not understand for a while, and he looked at Li Cheng with a puzzled gaze again. "Let's talk about it after you have completed 100 million circulations of your great Yin-Yang 5-element secrets." Seeing Yang Chun looking at himself, Li Cheng seemed to know what Yang Chun wanted to ask. Without waiting for him to speak, he directly blocked Yang Chun's question with an answer. Yang Chun was now practicing the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art, which took about a minute. Even if he did not stop all the time, if he wanted to practice 100 million chi circulation, according to this time, it would take nearly 200 years to complete. It had been less than 30 years since he ascended to the present. According to this calculation, Yang Chun was indeed a little impatient. No wonder Li Cheng would scold Yang Chun like this. Yang Chun should not be unaware of the truth that haste makes waste. It was just that he had no chance to come into contact with the origin cultivation method in his previous life, let alone what would happen after cultivating the origin cultivation method in the spiritual realm. So when he found that there was a problem with his cultivation, he was a little anxious and made a mistake. Fortunately, Li Cheng's scolding made Yang Chun completely wake up. Not only was there a problem with the cultivation method, but even in the way Yang Chun handled certain things, he made similar mistakes. Just like the construction of the site of Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun could not wait to find a piece of eternal foundation. Fortunately, at this time, the major sect did not discover the benefits of the Sunset Rock and Linyangchuan. Otherwise, there would be no chance for Yang Chun. It had to be said that Yang Chun was a little impatient. He always wanted to solve all the problems in the shortest time possible, but he forgot that sometimes, without the accumulation of time and history, many things could not be done perfectly. Even if the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was built extremely stable now, without a large number of disciples to back it up, what was the point? It's my fault for being impatient. Yang Chun sincerely apologized to Li Cheng. In this world, perhaps only Li Cheng could convince Yang Chun wholeheartedly. In terms of cultivation, even Master Gao Yu and Grandmaster Wang Yong could not let Yang Chun be convinced now. You even advised me not to look for the Zhao family in a hurry. Why are you in such a hurry to cultivate? Li Cheng just gave some advice to Yang Chun and did not mean to blame Yang Chun. Seeing Yang Chun admit his mistake, he nodded and continued to drink. At this time, Yang Chun only felt that the demons in his heart were gone, and his mind seemed to be a lot more open. Unconsciously, his divine sense cultivation improved by a small realm and entered the second grade of Fairy Immortal. Originally, Yang Chun suppressed his cultivation, but under Li Cheng's reminder, he did not have to suppress it too much in the future. Now even the last worry about the cultivation method was gone, and the sea of consciousness was still full of a large amount of pure divine sense. Under the influence of the inside and outside, it became inevitable to improve the realm. Drinking with a bosom friend, the two opened their bellies and drank to their heart's content. Dozens of jars of wine soon entered their stomachs. Yang Chun also knew that Li Cheng liked wine. Every time they met, he would always prepare a lot of good wine for him. This time was no exception. Before parting, Li Cheng unceremoniously put thousands of jars of wine into his cosmos bag and said goodbye happily. When you meet the Zhao family, kill them if you need to, don't worry about it. Li Cheng told Yang Chun before leaving. If you kill too many, they will naturally come out. If you want to improve your immortal beheading saber, you just need to kill some people with enough weight. Take it slowly. Other cultivators generally rarely advised others to kill, especially after ascending to the spiritual world. Everyone was open-minded, and sometimes killing could really affect the mood of cultivation. Only people like Li Cheng would advise Yang Chun to go on a killing spree, as if he was afraid that he would not kill enough. Yang Chun came to the spiritual world and thought that he had killed a lot. In less than 30 years, there were no less than dozens of people who died directly in his hands, and more than 1,000 people who died indirectly. In Li Cheng's eyes, it was still not enough. However, Yang Chun liked Li Cheng's suggestion very much. The mortal world had endured for a long time, and the spiritual world did not need to be like the mortal world. Li Cheng left, and he left neatly, just like when he came. When the two met, it seemed that they just exchanged information about the Zhao family, and then gave some advice to Yang Chun on a few problems in cultivation. But Yang Chun knew very well that Li Cheng came to see him to tell him about some resources in the Sunset Rock, Linyangchuan, and Parting Hatred Sea. At the same time, he helped Yang Chun to settle down in Chunyang Palace. It was just that he saw that Yang Chun had done a good job, so he did not say much. In any case, Yang Chun was very grateful. Watching his sworn brother leave, Yang Chun also turned back to Parting Hatred Sea. On the way back this time, Yang Chun did not use much speed because he had to think about some things on the way back. However, before Yang Chun arrived at the place, the people of the 5 major sects had already gone crazy because of a few words from Yang Chun. The large area of Sheeping Mountain in front of the Sunset Rock, with a radius of tens of thousands of miles, had completely become the possession of the 5 major sects. The jade slips that the four major sects brought back with the location of the spirit veins directly became the secret of the sect. All the sects sent teams with at least 2 fairy immortals to explore it. Only the representative of the Shintian sect was a little depressed. He only brought back a 4-revolution life prolonging pill. However, another piece of news was that none of the 5 major sects were left behind. The spirit vein in the gourd cave was actually formed by a powerful array that forcibly absorbed the spiritual power of the surrounding spirit veins. How could they not study this array? The big and small forces in the gourd cave were still fighting for the ownership of a new spirit vein, causing countless casualties. Several forces saw that it was not a solution, so they stopped fighting and planned to discuss how to divide the spirit vein. As a result, as the people of the 5 major sects arrived one after another, it suddenly became a tragedy. The people of the Shintian sect were the closest, so they arrived the fastest. Because they had suffered a small loss in Sheeping Mountain, they were in a bad mood. Seeing these ant-like guys dare to covet the fairy immortal level spirit vein, they became even more angry. A large number of poor guys completely became the punching bags of the experts of the Shintian sect. Those with good eyesight saw the people of the Shintian sect immediately turn around and run. The people of the Shintian sect did not kill them. However, those who dared to stay in place and grit their teeth were courting death, so they could not blame others. When the people of the other 4 major sects arrived, they saw the disciples of the Shintian sect carefully studying the array under the spirit vein. There was no one else around. Chapter 16:30. This Yang Chun must die. Among the senior members of the mysterious heaven sect, someone had clearly issued such a voice. Especially when the senior members learned that the other 4 major sects had obtained the fairy immortal grade spiritual pulse, while the mysterious heaven sect had only obtained a 4 revolutions life prolonging pill. This was simply a slap in the face of the mysterious heaven sect. Not only Yang Chun, but also the 4 major sects. Min Huafeng of the Green Jade Immortal Island didn't ask earlier or later. She waited until the mysterious heaven sect made a decision before asking, but Yang Chun actually gave a slap in the face on the spot. These guys colluded together in the mortal world, and they were definitely deliberately targeting the mysterious heaven sect. Didn't Wang Xiang and the others already go ahead? The sect master of the mysterious heaven sect was more calm. He was considering the gains and losses of the mysterious heaven sect this time, and asked casually, "There is no news from Wang Xiang and the others." Another senior member shook his head slightly and replied, "According to the calculation, they should have been able to intercept Yang Chun before the sect representatives met him. Now, there is no news. It is estimated that they are in trouble." The spiritual world was different from the mortal world. Under the strong spiritual pressure, unless one had practiced a special cultivation method and had unique materials, it was impossible to leave a life source tablet. This also led to the sect being unable to immediately know what happened to the disciples outside. A fairy immortal master and 2 earth immortal masters rushed to stop Yang Chun in front of all the representatives, but now they had disappeared without a trace. This was not a good sign. Their own disciples went to kill someone, but the opponent dared to resist. This was really unforgivable. The 4 major sect and the mysterious heaven sect naturally had contradictions. Although everyone was from the same sect, since the mysterious heaven sect was the #1 sect, it was no wonder that the other sect joined forces to deal with them. This kind of contradiction was irreconcilable, but a small disciple of the Chunyang Palace dared to get involved. He was really tired of living. "Since he is in the way, then elderly, you should go in person." The sect master nodded and directly authorized elderly to go. This little guy had already taken the lives of several experts from the Black Heaven sect. Furthermore, he might even affect the balance of the major sect. He couldn't be left alive. If they killed Yang Chun now, the other sects wouldn't interfere too much. However, if they dragged it on, the other sects would owe Yang Chun more and more favors, and it wouldn't be as easy to deal with Yang Chun then. The reason why elderly was sent out was because of the recent rumors. Yang Chun seemed to have obtained the celestial devouring insect in the gourd cave. Although he did not know what the cultivation of the insect was, it must not be weak since it had been raised on a spirit vein of a peak heaven immortal for tens of thousands of years. This also explained why Wang Xiang and the others had not returned. Without sending out experts, they would not be able to deal with Yang Chun. What was certain now was that there was a sky immortal grade spirit vein in the Sheeping Mountain in front of the Sunset Rock. From Yang Chen's tone, it seemed that there were also some rich resources. This place must be occupied and must not be handed over to others. As for the Sunset Rock, Linyang River, and Separation Hatred Sea currently occupied by the Chunyang Palace, they would also have to slowly plot over them. They believed that there would definitely be a lot of good things in them. Yang Chun should feel honored. A little human immortal junior was worthy of the high-level discussion of the Black Heaven sect. Finally, they made the decision to kill him and even sent a core elder to execute it. Even if he was in the underworld, he should still be smiling. Yang Chun, who was with Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, did not know that the danger had arrived. Rushing back to the Separation Hatred Sea, Yang Chun asked Lan Ying about the feeling of cultivating the 10th water true secret art. Li Cheng would not lie to Yang Chun, but this would not prevent Yang Chun from asking a few more people. 10th water true secret art? Very good. Lan Ying's nerves were thick, and she did not find anything strange about Yang Chen's consultation. She said, "For so many years, this old lady has relied on the 10th water true secret art to dominate the sea. It is normal to not adapt to the spiritual world at first. You will get used to it after a few times of practice." Lan Ying's words were very general, but Yang Chun could be sure that Lan Ying's cultivation was not hindered at all. As long as she practiced enough, she could adapt to the 100 times spiritual pressure of the spiritual world. Yang Chun had never been exposed to the original cultivation method in his previous life. He did not expect such a strong performance, and even did not need any advanced cultivation method at all. When Yang Chun first arrived in the spiritual world in his previous life, he did not know how much effort he had spent in order to get some advanced cultivation methods. This time, he was finally able to save it. Chunyang Palace had the body of Old Bug, which could be said to be impregnable, so there was no need for Yang Chun to worry anymore. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. It was also time to familiarize themselves with the spiritual world and gain experience alone. The body of Old Bug carried by Yang Chun was directly divided into two halves. One half was given to Gao Yu, and the other half was given to Gong Sunling. Even if they were separated again, the cultivation base of each small avatar was still at the early stage of the fairy immortal realm. Coupled with Gao Yu's 100 spirit body armor and Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map, even if they encountered any danger in the spiritual world, it was more than enough to escape safely. There was no shortcut to cultivation, and it was not good to build a car behind closed doors. Everyone understood the truth, but Yang Chun was worried about the safety of the two women and had never let them go alone. Now that there was the body of Old Bug to protect them, Yang Chun also let go of his worries and let the two women freely gain experience. Until now, Yang Chun felt a little safer around him. After so many years of hard work, it finally had a little result. Gong Sunling and Gao Yu did not separate directly, but sat in Gong Sunling's ship and wandered in the sea. On the one hand, it was to perfect the sea map in the mountain river geographical map. On the other hand, it was also to increase some fighting experience. In a vast sea, there were many fierce beasts. It was really a good place for experience. Lan Ying was also accompanied by Lan Ying, who was afraid of the world being in chaos. She had been in the spiritual world for so many years, and had already aimed at many targets in the sea, but her own cultivation base was not enough, and she did not dare to do it. Now that there were two strong helpers, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, it was natural to find a way to solve a batch. Although Gao Yu and Gong Sunling's cultivation base seemed to be only at the level of a human immortal, but after Lan Ying saw Yang Chen's abnormal strength, she did not dare to underestimate the women around Yang Chun. She had no doubt that when necessary, she could not stop a blow from the two women. At this time, Yang Chun returned to the state of being alone. After walking around the sect, Yang Chun thought about it and felt that he should solve the problem of his spiritual awareness first. Although Li Cheng had seen that there would be no problem for the time being, it was not a very pleasant thing to carry an explosive bag that could be detonated at any time. Fortunately, there were already 4 ancient zither in his hands. In addition to the place where Old Bug was in the gourd cave, there were still 3 places. In other words, there were 3 peerless masters waiting for him to release, waiting for him to consume his spiritual awareness. After so many times, the problem of spiritual awareness would no longer be a problem. Chapter 16:31. After returning to the sect and greeting the palace master, Yang Chen embarked on the journey to the second binding array. There was a disadvantage in choosing Linyang River as the location of a sect. That was, when he went to other places from Chunyang Palace, if he didn't want to take a long detour from the Lihan Sea, he had to go through the Sunset Rock. There was no other way. Since he had to pass by the Sunset Rock, Yang Chen had to take a look at the market built by the 5 sect for Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen went back and forth, and the people of the 5 sect had already arrived and started the construction. As Yang Chen requested, the current Sunset Rock Market was changing in the direction of the famous fortress in his previous life. However, no one could see it except for Yang Chen. Everyone just thought that it was a unique market built from the inside according to the terrain of the Sunset Rock. No one would have thought that in the future, as long as a strong protective array was set up, this place could immediately become a fortress. The 5 sect attached great importance to the transaction with Yang Chen and sent out powerful people. In just a few days, Yang Chen could basically see some of the prototype of the market. Each sect was responsible for a large section, about hundreds of miles long, adding up to thousands of miles, enough to become the largest market within 100 miles. After a simple exploration, Yang Chen set foot on the road again. This time he was going to a dangerous place. Compared with the Gourd Valley, he didn't know how many times more dangerous it was. Yang Chen had never been there in his previous life, and he was about to rush over to explore it carefully. However, when he left the Sunset Rock for less than 20,000 miles, Yang Chen found trouble. He had once again fallen into the encirclement. The encirclement this time was definitely not the kind of encirclement he had encountered before, where a few people casually surrounded him from a few directions and then jumped out to rob him. Instead, it was a meticulously prepared, large-scale formation. As long as he passed within a radius of 100 miles, he would definitely be silently trapped by the formation. Just this array formation alone was definitely a big deal. Ordinary cultivators simply could not come up with something like this. Putting aside the materials, just controlling the formation alone would require at least 10 Earth Immortal experts, and even 2 to 3 Heaven Immortal experts to control the formation core. One must know that a formation controlled by so many people could not only be fixed in one place, but could also be changed at any time. Only such a high-level formation could trap Yang Chen unknowingly. In order to deal with Yang Chen alone, they had mobilized such a large force. It was definitely not an ordinary force. What were they after? For the time being, the only thing on Yang Chen that could tempt people was the life extension pill. Everything else was not worth it in the eyes of the powerhouses in the spiritual realm. However, if it was just for a mere prolonging life pill, wasn't this scene a little too grand? Who is this expert? What business do you have with me? The other party only activated the formation to trap him, but did not directly make a move. There must be other intentions. Yang Chen was not in a hurry to make a move. He used his divine sense to explore and shouted loudly, "Surrender, and I'll spare your life." An unfamiliar voice sounded out of nowhere. Under the influence of the array formation, this loud voice could be heard from all directions. Just listening to the voice, there was an invisible majesty which made people involuntarily have a sense of inferiority in front of an expert. However, this kind of method was useless to Yang Chen. At least in his previous life, he had even seen the Jade Emperor. He would not be fooled by a guy who could only hide his head and show his tail. The reaction given by Yang Chen was to reach out and pull out the immortal beheading saber. He held in his hand and looked coldly in a certain direction. If so, then don't blame this old man. The strange voice was still the same, and there was almost no emotion in it. This can be considered as a punishment for teaching. Die in peace. With his voice, countless rays of light flashed from the surroundings and slashed in the direction of Yang Chun. On Yang Chun's body, a phantom of a golden bell suddenly appeared. The rays of light slashed on the golden bell, but there was no sound. There were only a few dragon shadows flying up and down. This kind of pure spiritual power attack, unless it was strong to a certain extent, it was impossible to break through the protection of the golden bell. However, Yang Chun had already determined a direction at this time. The immortal beheading saber in his hand was raised high and slashed down in front of him. The bright saber light carried a rush of wind and was full of killing intent. Evil creature, how dare you? Surrender and surrender. Under the accompaniment of the knife light, Yang Chun's mouth uttered a word that should not have been said on this occasion. Yang Chun didn't know how many times he had said the same words in the spiritual realm, but Yang Chun was disappointed every time. But this time, Yang Chun seemed to be lucky. In a certain position in the array, the eyes of the master who presided over the array suddenly lit up, and he suddenly scolded. Just by you? Catch up with me first. The words between the two were very absurd. Yang Chun was trapped in the array, but he shouted for the other party to surrender and even scolded the other party as an evil creature. It was clear that the target was not a human. The person who answered was even more extreme. He was clearly controlling the array to trap Yang Chun, but he said that he wanted Yang Chun to catch up. The people who heard these words all had a baffled expression on their faces. Yang Chun might be talking nonsense in a desperate situation, but why would elderly accompany Yang Chun to talk nonsense? Could it be that he was affected by some demonic technique of Yang Chun? It had to be said that their guess was very well founded. When Yang Chun shouted again, "Old dog, give me your life." At this time, Elderly, who controlled the array seemed to be angry, and the attack of the array had almost reached the limit. There's a way to heaven, but you don't want to go, and you break into hell without a door. Today you are dead. Fortunately, after a round of crazy attacks, everyone in the array heard the voice of their own elderly, who had recovered his calmness, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. The array needed enough manpower to ensure that Yang Chun would not escape. Everyone had already learned about Yang Chun before they came. This guy might not be very strong, but his ability to escape was absolutely unique. There was a record of escaping the pursuit of a master in the late Deshang stage, when he was in the mortal world, when he was in the foundation stage. So everyone was carefully controlling the array for fear of giving Yang Chun the slightest opportunity, leading to failure. Such a slippery guy. Since even Elderly had come out, then he must not be lost. Even if he had the immortal eating insect on him, he would be trapped in this array. As long as everyone did not make mistakes, they could kill Yang Chun in the array. However, even with such complete preparation, there was still a problem. Chapter 16:32. He didn't know who made a small mistake, but this was enough. The formation of dozens of people, of course, could not tolerate the slightest flaw. A small mistake brought about a small gap in the formation. This gap appeared very secretly, and the time was extremely short. In just a few moments, it seemed to have been filled. In theory, such a small mistake was not a mistake at all for a small human immortal junior. What everyone was guarding against was the legendary fairy eater insect queen. It must be known that in the legend of the Gourd Cave, the fairy eater insect queen was a terrifying monster that easily killed thousands of people. Even if Elderly went out, he had to be cautious. In the face of a terrifying master, no matter how careful they were, they could not be too careful. However, with such careful arrangements, up to now, Yang Chun had not released the fairy eater insect queen. This surprised everyone, but they had also been on guard for fear that Yang Chun was planning to use a master at a critical moment. No one would have thought that such a gap that would disappear in just a blink of an eye would actually be seized by Yang Chun. That cunning kid, as expected, was worthy of being in the foundation establishment stage and had escaped from the hands of a master in the late Deshang stage. It was as if he was born with a spirit of escape. That small gap was actually discovered by him and successfully used. Yang Chun had been using the golden bell to resist the spiritual power attack launched by the formation. When he heard the strange voice, he knew that he would not be in danger. The completely unreasonable words that the two people scolded each other were the secret code that Yang Chun got from the mouth of the young master of the Taishaman, Li Liheng, the highest level of undercover disciples of the Taishaman and the sect. This level of secret code could only be truly mastered by the core senior members of the sect. Even the general elders did not know the existence of these secret codes. Yang Chun had always planned to use this secret code. Was there anything more wonderful than becoming the core disciple of the Xintian sect when he wanted to take revenge on the Xintian sect? It must be a wonderful feeling to use the enemy's resources to strengthen oneself and destroy the enemy. Previously, when Yang Chun faced the mysterious Heaven sect disciples, he had said this signal several times, but he hadn't received the right answer. In response, Yang Chun's response was to kill them without mercy. Yang Chun was not afraid of incurring the wrath of the disciples of the mysterious Heaven sect. The more they did this, the more confident Yang Chun would be when he met the true higher-ups of the mysterious Heaven sect. A person who had killed so many disciples of the mysterious Heaven sect could not possibly be a spy for the mysterious Heaven sect in the eyes of outsiders. It was definitely convenient for him to do things that the mysterious Heaven sect was not suited for, right? That gap that suddenly appeared was definitely not caused by a single person's carelessness or mistake, but was intentionally done by Elder Li, who was in charge of controlling the Formation Eye. When he found out that Yang Chun was the highest-ranking spy in his sect, the shock in his heart was no less than when he heard that Yang Chun had a life extension pill. However, he no longer had the time to think about what benefits Yang Chun would bring to the mysterious Heaven sect if he suddenly became a spy. The most important thing right now was to let Yang Chun escape, then find an opportunity to secretly meet and understand everything. The disciples of the mysterious Heaven sect who came with Elder Li had no right to know about such a high-level matter. They also didn't know that Elder Li, who had brought them here to kill Yang Chun, had become the person who wanted to let Yang Chun go the most. The two of them tacitly performed. Aside from the two of them, no one else knew that the light that attacked Yang Chun only looked powerful on the surface, but when it landed on the golden bell, it was much weaker. This was the signal that Elder Li released to Yang Chun, telling him not to worry. Finally, after one of the attacks, Yang Chun saw a flash of an opening. Yang Chun, who was already prepared, immediately summoned the shuttle that was ready to go and rushed out from that gap. By the time the people of the mysterious Heaven sect reacted and filled the gap in the formation, Yang Chun had already escaped from the range of the formation and escaped without looking back. Who let this brat go? Elder Li's roar echoed among the mysterious Heaven sect disciples. His anger was like a volcanic eruption, and no one dared to speak. No one knew what kind of expectation Elder Li had in his heart under his monstrous anger and annoyance. Seeing Elder Li's anger and hearing Elder Li's roar, all the mysterious Heaven sect disciples present could understand. It was not easy to take the opportunity to keep an eye on Yang Chun's whereabouts at the Sunset Rock. It took so many people and so much effort to besiege Yang Chun in the formation, but unexpectedly a small mistake made everyone's efforts fall short of success. If it was them, they would also be angry. If Yang Chun escaped this time, who knew how long it would take to catch him again? Even Elder Li's appearance ended up like this. At this time, who would dare to say anything and provoke Elder Li? Under Elder Li's roar, everyone obediently put away the formation and quickly searched for Yang Chun's whereabouts. Elder Li seemed to still be angry and stayed in place for a long time. Only then did he order a few close disciples to lead the group back to the branch at Sheeping Mountain. As for Elder Li himself, he found a few nearby beasts and killed them to vent his anger. Everyone understood that Elder Li was not in a good mood, so no one dared to stay by Elder Li's side. If they were careless and got caught in the crossfire, wouldn't that be too unjust? Since Elder Li let everyone go back, then of course everyone went down the slope and immediately left. Their speed was no worse than when Yang Chun fled. Elder Li, who was madly looking for beasts to vent his anger, stayed in this area for 4 to 5 days and killed countless beasts. It wasn't until he was completely sure that there was no one around that he chased after Yang Chun. After chasing for about 1,000 kilometers, Elderly keenly sensed a place that seemed normal, but had an obscure arrow mark in a certain direction. After seeing this, Elderly faintly smiled and continued to chase in the direction the arrow was pointing at. After 500 kilometers, there was another arrow, but this time it was pointing in a different direction. After a few times, Elderly couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This kid, Yang Chun, was really very cautious. Finally, after chasing for more than 5,000 kilometers, Elder Li's divine sense found Yang Chun's figure. Yang Chun stood alone in the dense forest, quietly waiting for Elderly to arrive. Chapter 1633. Greetings, martial ancestor. Elder Li's figure landed in front of Yang Chun. Yang Chun immediately bowed and saluted without thinking. Since he wanted to break into the profound heaven sect, he had to put down his pride. Yang Chun could endure for 10,000 years in his previous life. In this life, in order to destroy the profound heaven sect, it was not a problem for him to just call him martial ancestor and salute. He regarded it as respecting the old and giving way to the talented. There was no psychological pressure at all. It's been hard on you. Elderly looked at the well-mannered Yang Chun and suddenly sighed and said such a sentence. Along the way, Elderly also thought a lot. He had a deeper understanding of Yang Chen's high-profile killing of young master Yi Xian and destroying the entire Chiman sect as soon as he arrived in the spiritual realm. Yang Chen's move was definitely to hide his identity deeper. At this time, under the premise that the Taishaman in the mortal world had already been destroyed, it was very advantageous. However, the consequence of dealing with the profound heaven sect's disciples in such a high-profile manner was that he was regarded as an enemy by the entire profound heaven sect. In addition to Elder Li's wave, at least 3 groups of people had been dispatched to kill Yang Chun. Even the higher-ups had also made the decision to kill Yang Chun not long ago. Under such pressure, how much effort did Yang Chun, a little human immortal junior, have to pay to save his life? At least in Elder Li's eyes, in order to deal with the profound heaven sect and other malicious attacks, Yang Chun must have paid a great price to have the opportunity to stand in front of him alive. It's not hard for this disciple, but I had no choice but to kill a few fellow disciples. This disciple has always felt uneasy. Yang Chen's performance was vivid. Even the expression on his face was very cooperative, making people unable to see any flaws. At this moment, Elder Li's mind was no longer on this. He was eager to know how Yang Chun became a secret disciple of the Taishaman. Those disciples who ascended from the mortal world didn't say anything at all. If it wasn't for the secret communication code, he wouldn't dare to believe that all of this was true. It's okay. The situation is not right. Saving your life is the most important. Elderly advised gently. It's also fate that they met you. Don't take it to heart. Thank you, Grandmaster. Yang Chun expressed his gratitude once again. At the same time, he respectfully asked, "Forgive this disciple for being rude." This disciple still does not know the identity of martial ancestor. This old man's surname is Li, and I am the Black Heaven Sect's technique imparting elder. Elderly didn't think that Yang Chen's question was rude. If Yang Chun could see through his identity, then there would be a problem. After a pause, Elderly continued, "Tell me about the situation in the mortal world. How did you become a disciple of the sect?" "I am indebted to Master Li for not abandoning me and secretly accepting me as your disciple. I have been secretly managing the Chunyang Palace." Under Elder Li's gesture, Yang Chun respectfully sat on the tree stump opposite Elder Li and replied in a respectful tone, "Master Li also secretly supported me a lot. Chunyang Palace has today's glory." Yang Chen's position in Chunyang Palace could be made clear as long as people inquired about it a little. It could be said that Yang Chun was below one person and above tens of thousands of people. Even if Yang Chun was willing, the Palace Master of Chunyang Palace would not hesitate to give the position of the Palace Master to Yang Chun. It was not an exaggeration to describe Yang Chun as the real master of Chunyang Palace. The Taishaman in the mortal world had never stopped secretly controlling some small sect. As a high-level member of the Shintian sect, Elderly knew this better than anyone else. Needless to say, Yang Chun must be a spy planted by the Taishaman to control the Chunyang Palace. However, this spy was very outstanding. He abruptly developed the Chunyang Palace, which was not even a second-rate sect, into its current scale. The development of the Chunyang Palace was almost a miracle. Even Elderly in the spiritual realm had heard of it. When Yang Chun said this to him, Elder Li's heart suddenly moved. Now the Taishaman in the mortal world had no more power, but the newly rising Chunyang Palace was not a small force. In time, with the development momentum of the Chunyang Palace in the mortal world, it may not be unable to surpass the Taishaman in the past. What was the biggest problem of the Shintian sect now? Wasn't it because there was no foundation in the mortal world? But at this juncture, Yang Chun jumped into the eyes of Elder Li with the Chunyang Palace. If this was not God's will, then what was it? Who was the teacher Li that you were talking about? Elder Li asked very casually after Yang Chun continued to say what he wanted to say. Master Li is the sect master of the Taishaman. Yang Chun suddenly stopped his words and replied quickly. So, it's really not wrong for you to call me Grandmaster. Elder Li chuckled. The Master Li you speak of is a descendant of my clan. Even he has to address me as ancestor. You are his disciple, so it is only right for you to address me as ancestor. Grandmaster. Yang Chun followed the advice and blurted out the word Grandmaster without hesitation. Elder Li responded with a laugh, and the pride in his heart was indescribable. He was the first to discover the secret disciple, Yang Chun, and Yang Chun actually had this relationship with him. With Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace as the foundation, his status in the Shintian sect would only rise in the future. It was really the right decision to come out in person. What is the current strength of the Chunyang Palace in the mortal world? Since there was a disciple like Yang Chun, Elder Li naturally had to care about the power he could borrow. He immediately asked about the situation of the Chunyang Palace in the mortal world. Now, the Chunyang Palace and the Chunyang Courtyard have a total of no less than 400,000 disciples. There should be hundreds of Deshang stage disciples and tens of thousands of Yuanying stage disciples. Yang Chun did not hide it. As long as he had the intention, he could find a person who had ascended in the mortal world to learn about these things. At most, there would be a slight difference in the specific numbers. Elder Li wanted to ask, and Yang Chun immediately replied quickly, Chunyang Palace has no foundation in the spiritual world. Before this disciple contacted the sect, he did not dare to take risks. So he asked all the disciples who can ascend to wait for another 100 years. After this disciple has settled everything, he will ascend. This also explained why there were only so many people in the Chunyang Palace now. In this regard, Elder Li was not angry, but very happy. If it was before he knew the identity of Yang Chun, Chunyang Palace would definitely have ulterior motive for doing this. But now Yang Chun was farsighted, thought long-term, and arranged well. People's thoughts were sometimes so clear. In that case, you will follow me to a place. Elder Li, through the communication code, coupled with Yang Chun's respectful explanation to him, had confirmed that Yang Chun was the spy arranged by the Taishaman. At the moment, he no longer had any doubts and immediately set off with Yang Chun. I also want to meet the high-level members of the sect. By the way, I will tell everyone about the destruction of the Taishaman. Chapter 1634. It was impossible for Yang Chun to swagger into the mysterious heaven sect, at least not now. Even if Yang Chun was willing, the mysterious heaven sect would not want Yang Chun, a spy that had been hidden for so many years, to be exposed. Therefore, Elder Li took Yang Chun to another secret place. This place was a secret place of the mysterious heaven sect that was never known to outsiders. Except for the core elders of the mysterious heaven sect, ordinary elders had never heard of the existence of this secret place. This place was not within the territory of the mysterious heaven sect, so it was very safe. After placing Yang Chun in the secret place, Elder Li rushed back to the sect as fast as lightning. He wanted to immediately inform the sect master and the other core elders of this good news. When he thought of how shocked the others would be after hearing the news, Elder Li felt very proud. He was now looking forward to the performance of those people more and more. Sure enough, after hearing Elder Lee's description, the sect master, who had always remained calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, instantly stood up. Is this true? The extermination of the Taishaman in the mortal world, coupled with the disappearance of the great principal golden immortal from the celestial world, had become a sore point in the mysterious heaven sect. The core elders were almost heartbroken when they suddenly heard the exciting news brought by Elder Lee. How could they sit still? Really, the secret code is correct, and he showed up to greet us. Elder Lee was in a very good mood. He had met Yang Chun and had a close relationship with him. He would never think that Yang Chen's identity was fake. In order to confirm his contribution, he immediately patted his chest and promised, "You can all go and ask carefully. If there are any problems, he is in a secret place anyway, so we can take him down at any time." They had to meet Yang Chun, and they also had to test him. This was related to the future development of the mysterious heaven sect, so they couldn't be careless. Although this good news was shocking, everyone suppressed their joy and began to discuss how to meet with Yang Chun. Yang Chun didn't have to wait for long in the secret area. While he was cultivating, the core members of the mysterious heaven sect and the core high elders also arrived. They didn't directly meet with Yang Chun, but observed Yang Chun from afar. Yang Chun didn't seem to know that as long as anyone here had the intention to kill him, he could be buried at any time. Just like in his own sect, he boldly carried out this kind of deep meditation practice without any regard for the danger in the secret plane. In the eyes of the upper echelons of the mysterious heaven sect, this kind of behavior was completely treating them as one of their own. They were not on guard at all. Just by looking at this behavior, the higher-ups who were secretly observing had a better impression of him. Until Yang Chun finished his cultivation, the higher-ups of the mysterious heaven sect didn't disturb Yang Chun. After waking up, the first thing Yang Chun saw was Elder Lee with a smile. There were also a few people next to him. To be able to stand with Elder Lee, there was no need to think about it. They were definitely the higher-ups of the mysterious heaven sect. Yang Chun didn't say anything and immediately bowed. Disciple greets the ancestors. In any case, these people were all old enough, so it wasn't wrong to call them ancestors. Yang Chun didn't hesitate and addressed them uniformly. No need to be so polite. Seeing how polite Yang Chun was, the sect master of the mysterious heaven sect, who was standing in the middle, looked at Yang Chun with less scrutiny and more warmth. After all the complicated etiquette was completed, Yang Chun carefully sat down opposite the higher-ups and waited for the next interrogation. This was an indispensable procedure, and Yang Chun was mentally prepared. Even if he matched the highest-level secret code, it was impossible to suddenly let people accept that he was a secret disciple of the Taishaman. No matter what the purpose was, there would always be people who would doubt it. How were the Taishaman destroyed? The sect master came up without saying anything and directly asked the question they wanted to know the most. Although the mysterious heaven sect had investigated a lot about the destruction of the Taishaman, there was no other Taishaman disciple except for Yang Lan and Yang Lan. The information obtained from the people of other sect was always more or less biased. Those who really knew the inside story, the mysterious heaven sect, didn't dare to act rashly. Yang Chun was a core disciple of the Chunyang Palace, so it was inevitable that he knew more inside information. It just so happened that they could understand a little more. The universe everlasting spirit suppression array was suddenly activated, causing the sect to become the public enemy of the world. Yang Chun quickly replied. In addition, young sect master Li Liheng was found to have cultivated the Great Freedom Demon Heart Sutra, and the female masters of the sect who were captured were exposed. These are the two main reasons. What Yang Chun said was not much different from what the higher-ups of the mysterious heaven sect had already learned. Therefore, Yang Chun's answer did not make everyone very satisfied. However, this disciple suspects that there are other secrets. Yang Chun also knew that his answer would not be satisfactory, so after answering these two common answers, he immediately added a sentence. What kind of secrets? Hearing Yang Chun's words, everyone immediately became spirited. What they wanted to know the most was these secrets, which were 100 times more useful than the information on the surface. This disciple was not at the scene when the sect was destroyed, but after that, this disciple communicated with some people who were at the scene. Yang Chun first explained the channel through which he obtained the so-called secrets, so that everyone knew that this was not what Yang Chun said. Then, he continued, "It is said that the young sect master obtained the array from a senior in the spiritual realm. The universe everlasting spirit suppression array was actually set up by the sect hundreds of years ago. For hundreds of years, it has been safe and sound, but suddenly, the array became violent and crazily absorbed the spiritual power of the world. This is strange. When a universe everlasting spirit suppression array is operating normally, there will be no obvious signs. It was only recently discovered that if the array is activated at a special array I, it will cause the situation at that time to happen. Elderly wanted to support Yang Chun, so of course at this time, he had to check for loopholes for Yang Chun and give him an appropriate reminder. In fact, there was the demon sealing array at that time. Even if the special array I was activated, it should not have happened in a short time. Yang Chun immediately got out of the situation and said, but unexpectedly, the demon sealing array suddenly lifted automatically, which led to the arrival of countless heaven's retribution. The disciples, who were caught off guard, immediately suffered heavy casualties. Did you find the demon sealing array? Another elder next to him suddenly raised another topic and asked in a questioning tone, "It is said that you sold it for a good price." "I found it," Yang Chun admitted very readily, but immediately explained, "My wife and concubine were with me." Later, Masterly wanted to take the opportunity to send me a batch of resources to support Chunyang Palace. Chapter 16:35. So, you have been selling the pills to the sect at a high price before for the same reason? With the first question, there was a second question immediately. Yang Chun didn't even need to take the initiative to lead the topic to this. The second elder had already made a hypothesis. Originally, the demon sealing formation was sold at a high price, but after Yang Chun said this, it became a move by the Taishaman sect Masterly to take the opportunity to support Yang Chun. This turn of events immediately made people feel different. One was forced to accept a high price, and the other was taking the opportunity to support his secret disciple. The active and passive immediately changed, and it was much more comfortable. This disciple is new here. Apart from my old acquaintances in the mortal world, how do I know anyone else? Yang Chun smiled bitterly and replied, "Someone suddenly threw a few jade slips when this disciple was in a hurry. This disciple didn't even see who it was. There was not only a description of the person's identity, but also the characteristics of each person's cultivation method. In particular, there was a point that was everyone's weakness. According to the contents of the jade slips, if one wanted to kill someone, as long as one targeted the weakness, it would not be difficult to defeat the strong with the weak. In addition to defense, the demon sealing formation also has another important role, which is to block the heavenly tribulation." Yang Chun explained his judgment bit by bit and vaguely pointed in another direction. The reason for opening the demon sealing formation may not be to let people from other sect come in. Where did you learn your alchemy techniques? This time, it was another elder who asked the question. The questions were asked quickly and urgently, not giving Yang Chun time to think at all. The topic had also changed from the beginning to who knows where. Judging from the quality of these jade slips, they came from our sect's jade mine. They should be people from our sect. Although he couldn't find out who made it from the content and the traces of the divine sense engravings, the material of the jade slips left some clues. Immediately, one of the elders easily identified where the jade came from. The cultivation bases of these core members were not very strong. The strongest among them was only at the second level of the Heaven Immortal stage, while the weakest was only at the peak of the Earthen Immortal stage. If Yang Chun wanted to, he could use some secret techniques to kill off these core members of Profound Heaven sect in a short time. However, in that case, the few supreme experts who have been eyeing Yang Chun covetously would make a move to kill Yang Chun. Yang Chun wasn't so arrogant as to think that he could fight against a few Xian Immortal experts when he was still in the worldly immortal stage. It was clearly the Taishamen who were forced to be extorted by Yang Chun, but now it had become the sect supporting Yang Chun. Even the most picky person had to admit that this turn of events was quite reasonable if they considered Yang Chen's identity as a secret disciple. Indeed, of course, Yang Chen immediately admitted it. What a joke. If he told them the truth, he was tricking the Taishaman at that time. Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? At this point, everyone was basically certain that Yang Chen was a disciple secretly accepted by sect master Li of the Taishaman. Not to mention anything else, the spatial spiritual cultivation method was definitely a secret amongst secrets. Li Liheng could get the heaven and earth infinite spirit suppressing formation from the predecessors of the spiritual world. Except for the core high-level members, no one else knew about it. Even the people and lackeys like Yang Lan and Yang Lan didn't know about it. Yang Chen actually knew about it. Obviously, he was not valued by sect master Li. If he was not a loyal disciple, how could he pass down such a secret of the sect? The elder who asked the question reached out and took a few pieces of jade slips. After probing them a few times, he confirmed the contents. 2 of them were the experiences of his acquaintances, so they were definitely not fake. Continue to talk about what you know. Since everyone basically had no doubts about the identity of Yang Chen, then the previous question would continue. Relying on the records of the experiences of these alchemy masters, Yang Chen was able to be promoted to a 5th grade alchemy master in the mortal world. It had to be said that Yang Chen was really talented in alchemy. In the past, the higher-ups of the mysterious heaven sect hated such a genius alchemist to the point of gnashing their teeth and wishing they could kill him directly. Now that he had suddenly become their disciple, the feeling was as if the flying sword that was slashing at them had suddenly turned into a delicious pie, making them feel extremely good. When the Taishaman really controlled the demon sealing array, it meant that they had entered the core of the Taishaman, and they must know that the sect master of the immortal world Shintian sect had already sat in the position of the Jade Emperor. The Taishaman had a boundless future. Why should they care about the identity of other sect and sacrifice themselves for the interests of other sect? You know, in the situation at that time, except for Yang Lan and Yang Lan, no one else could ascend. If they broke the demon sealing array, they would only die. The sect did not start to attack at that time, and the demon sealing array had not reached its limit. No one had more authority on this than Yang Chen, who discovered the demon sealing array and was the first to arrange it. So there was only one conclusion, and that was that the demon sealing array was unlocked from the inside. How did you know the identity of Zhu Yixian? An elder remembered his initial doubts and asked again, "You have never met each other. It is impossible for you to know his identity as soon as you met him." Many people from other sects speculated that it was a high-level undercover of a certain sect. But even if it was an undercover of another sect, how could it be possible to hide from all the high-level members of the Taishaman and achieve this status? There had always been 2 disk arrays for the demon sealing array, and both were controlled by the most reliable people in the sect. How could they make such a mistake at a critical moment? Yang Chen had already prepared the jade slip. It was completely pure, and no one would be able to detect its identity. It marked the identity and characteristics of many mysterious heaven sect disciples, as well as a simple portrait. As long as one remembered the contents of the jade slip, anyone would be able to recognize Zhu Yixian's identity. The demon sealing array was suddenly unlocked not by an external force, but by an internal force. After saying his own judgment, Yang Chen then described the situation at the time. Although it was all heard from the mouth of outsiders, and the situation was also consistent with what the profound heaven sect knew, there were more doubts. It was clear that the materials from the mysterious heaven sect clearly showed that the person who gave the portrait to Yang Chen was definitely from within the mysterious heaven sect and was very familiar with many of the disciples in the sect. Although Yang Chen didn't explain the reason for opening the demon sealing array, since it wasn't to let people from other sect go in, there was only one explanation left, and that was to trigger a divine retribution. What kind of person could trigger a divine retribution? Who succeeded in passing the retribution in the end? The identity of a suspect was already clear. Disciple has some talent in alchemy and was fortunate enough to be nurtured by Teacher Li. Teacher Li gave me a few of the alchemy insights of the seniors in the spirit realm. There were a few more jade slips in Yang Chen's hands. They were the records of the alchemy seniors in the spirit realm that Yang Chen had obtained when he went to the Taishaman to exchange for pills. Taking them out now was simply the most suitable evidence. Chapter 1636. Before the sect was destroyed, all the cultivators in the world joined forces to question Master Li and the others. Yang Chen continued unhurriedly. The number of female disciples of the various sects who were kidnapped far exceeds the needs of the young sect master to cultivate the Great Free Demon Heart Sutra. They suspect that the real cultivator of the Great Free Demon Heart Sutra is Teacher Li. For example, Elder Li only asked subconsciously, but he didn't expect it to be what Yang Chen wanted. Master Li said that he was lucky and could cover for the disciples, so he was spared. Yang Chen had already thought of everything before coming up with the plan. He only needed to say it now. Sometimes, who could truly see through what was real and what was fake and what was fake and what was real? Yang Chen didn't say who the suspect was, but everyone already had a suspect in their hearts. This method of controlling people's hearts isn't invulnerable. A voice that had never been heard before suddenly sounded. Only the voice could be heard, but no one could see the person. It must be one of the grand supreme mystic immortals outside speaking. The people who are being controlled will have some unique signs. As long as we check, we can still find out. For example, suddenly opening the demon sealing formation, or cultivating some cultivation technique that they don't want to cultivate at all. Yang Chen also answered casually. Then, he immediately put on a vigilant look and hurriedly apologized. This disciple was just making wild guesses. It can't be taken seriously. Grandmaster, please don't blame me. These jade slips were obtained by Yang Chen from a few mysterious Heaven Sect disciples who wanted to kill him. The contents were engraved by Yang Chen himself. With his knowledge of the mysterious Heaven Sect disciples in his previous life, it wasn't difficult for him to obtain such information. Elder Li pondered for a while before raising his head and asking, "Then what do you think is the reason?" Reporting to Grandmaster, "This disciple has selfish motives." Yang Chen replied without hesitation. Yang Lan and Yang Lan bullied their disciples when they were in their hometown. Even when Master Li asked Yang Lan to recruit disciples, he actually spread false news and made the disciples become enemies of the sect. If not for Master Li secretly recruiting him, this disciple wouldn't have known that he would be so heartless. Then why did you say that you have friends who grew up naked in the sect? No one who could become a core member of a sect, like the mysterious Heaven Sect, was a fool. Someone immediately asked Yang Chen this question. There's a problem with the spiritual awareness of the young sect master. This disciple specially refined the spiritual world spirit congealing pill to help the young sect master recover. According to reason, the young sect master should not have the idea of cultivating the Devil Heart Sutra. Yang Chen succeeded in letting everyone's thoughts follow him and slowly guided them. With the spirit congealing pill, his spiritual awareness will definitely be able to improve steadily. As the young sect master of Taishaman, he only needs to do nothing and he can improve. In addition, what he cultivated was the realm-crossing spiritual sense cultivation technique, so he could ascend normally by following the prescribed order. There was no need for him to choose such an unorthodox method. With this analysis, Li Liheng's reason for cultivating the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra didn't make sense. This disciple also secretly copied a secret of the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra and studied it for a while. Yang Chen took out another jade slip, which recorded the method of the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra and handed it to Elder Li, who was closest to him. This disciple found that those people's questions were reasonable. At that time, the number of cauldrons did exceed the needs of the young sect master's cultivation. But this disciple can be sure that Master Li absolutely did not cultivate this kind of demonic art. So you put a bounty on Yang Lan outside? Yang Lan's information was also known to the higher-ups. Under the torture of the disciples of the law enforcement hall, what information couldn't they get? After connecting the dots, they immediately made a decision. Why didn't you just kill him? The most interesting thing was that Yang Chen even added Yang Lan and Yang Lan to this information. In this way, Yangchen knew that Yanglan and Yanglan were in the mysterious heaven sect as soon as he ascended from the mortal world. When this was said, everyone nodded. No one would believe that the dignified sect master of the Taishaman would go back to cultivate an inferior demonic art. Have you ever seen a bastard who didn't want to be an emperor and insisted on being a beggar? There might be such a bastard, but it would never be the sect master of the Taishaman. This disciple studied the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra for a long time before discovering that there is a method in this demonic art that is specially used to control other people's minds unknowingly. Yang Shun replied respectfully, "The person who is being controlled, even he himself doesn't notice the abnormality, but as long as the person who cultivates the demonic art activates it, he will involuntarily do something he doesn't want to do." Everyone's cultivation base was at the peak of the Earth Immortal stage. A mere demonic art in the mortal world was not enough to make them have any other thoughts, but in such a short time, they had a very comprehensive understanding of the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. In particular, the method of controlling other people's minds that Yang Chun had specifically pointed out was studied. This situation was something that no one in the mysterious heaven sect had ever known. Those who were qualified to enter the Taishaman to question were all core figures of the major sect. What these people said and what they did at that time in the Taishaman was not something that the people of the mysterious heaven sect could inquire about. After Yang Chan said this, everyone suddenly became interested. What else was hidden at that time? Tell me all at once. The mysterious heaven sect master also thought for a moment before instructing Yang Chun. The spirit congealing pill was a pill from the spiritual realm, so everyone was naturally aware of its effects. However, what they didn't know was that the spirit congealing pill had little effect on people in the mortal world. If one's cultivation base was not high enough, they would not be able to completely absorb the effects of the pill. However, only Yang Chun knew the secret. The others were not alchemists, and it was impossible for them to return to the mortal world. So it was very normal that they didn't know. Of course, he wouldn't cultivate these things. Elder Li was the elder of Sect Master Li's family, so of course, he had to support his younger generation. As the dignified Sect Master of the Taishaman, what kind of Tao technique can't he get? Why would he need to cultivate these unorthodox methods? Everything was reasonable when strung together. In particular, Yang Chun did not hide his intention to avenge his personal grievances, which made the people of the mysterious heaven sect feel that it was credible. Is it a wild guess? That's not necessarily true. Elder Li's voice suddenly became fierce, and he casually stuffed the jade slip that recorded the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra into the hands of another elder. After that elder read it, he gave it to the next elder. Just like that, the jade slip quickly arrived in the hands of a certain grand elder who had suddenly appeared and then disappeared. Although it wasn't long, it was enough for them to have a deep understanding of the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra. Yangshan was right. That method of controlling people's minds could indeed make people do things they did not want to do without them realizing it. Chapter 1637. Xian Immortal experts were Xian Immortal experts. Compared to the people present, their cultivation and knowledge were not as simple as being 1 or 2 realms higher. What the core higher-ups of the mysterious heaven sect did not discover was discovered by the 2 supreme Xian Immortal elders in a short period of time. Under normal circumstances, the people controlled by the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra would not show any abnormalities. But after the analysis of the 2 supreme Xian Immortal elders, they found that one thing could be used. As long as they used a special spiritual sense shock, they could trigger a reaction from the control person. Of course, people who did not reach the cultivation level of the supreme Xian Immortal elders could never make this kind of spiritual sense shock, so it was normal that the core higher-ups did not discover it. Yang Chun had long known that such a thing would happen, so he did not say much and just guided them. Now, he finally waited for the moment when the 2 supreme Xian Immortal experts spoke. Some people's nature was hard to change. In a mortal world, they used this method to secretly control some people. It did not make sense for them to give up and wash their hands in the spiritual world. As long as they went back and investigated carefully, it would not be difficult to find the problem. In the past, the core higher-ups of the mysterious Heaven sect always thought that the Taishamen in the mortal world were angry because the young sect master cultivated the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra and the universe everlasting Yuan suppression formation. Then, Yang Chen's specious analysis had successfully led everyone's thoughts in the direction he wanted them to think the most. If someone cultivated the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra and then controlled the young sect master Li Liheng, using his name to cover up their own demonic arts. After discovering the special formation I of the universe, everlasting Yuan suppression formation, in order to transcend the tribulation and ascend, what kind of situation would that be? The magic of the Freedom Demon Heart Sutra was that it could quickly and effectively improve the cultivation of the cultivator's spiritual sense, but the cultivation of spiritual power could not be faked. Coincidentally, the special formation I of the universe, everlasting Yuan suppression formation, could greatly improve the spiritual power of the cultivator in the formation I after research by the formation masters in the spiritual world. Yang Lan and Yang Lan, the two younger generations, when they were in Taishamen, the highest cultivation base was only at the peak Jidan stage. Their qualifications were not good, but the whole Taishamen sect was exterminated. In the end, only the two siblings ascended. If you think deeply about this matter, it was not as simple as the two of them being punished by the young sect master because they did something wrong. Everything that happened in the mortal world was really too coincidental. Here, the young sect master had just been discovered to be cultivating the Freedom Devil Heart Sutra, and on the other side, the two of them were punished. The Heaven and Earth Limitless Origin Suppression Array was something that even the formation masters of the spiritual world did not discover. The young sect master of the mortal world had almost never put any effort into the formation, but he actually accurately found the location of the special formation I and even sent the two of them over. On this side, the Taishamen were still relying on the Fiend Sealing Array to resist the siege of all the cultivators in the world. In the end, the Fiend Sealing Array was immediately opened from the inside. At that time, all the Taishamen disciples present were annihilated, and even the Great Elder, who had a higher cultivation base than Yang Lan and Yang Lan, could not escape. However, Yang Lan and Yang Lan, who were grade 3 human immortals, safely crossed the tribulation. If it happened once or twice, it could be said to be a coincidence, but so many coincidences piled up together, and every time it happened to the same two people, it was too much of coincidence. It was so coincidental that others couldn't believe it. In the Xintian sect, except for Yang Lan and Yang Lan, there was no disciple of their own sect who ascended to tell them what happened in the mortal world. They could only inquire little by little from the cultivators of other sects. Now that Yang Chun had returned to the sect, he immediately brought such inside information. Finding that what he knew was very different from what he thought, even the always calm sect master could not help but tremble with anger. Yang Chun, meritorious service must be rewarded. You have endured humiliation to bring the news. Take out your life source magic weapon, and the sect's great elder will help you refine it again. The sect master forcibly suppressed his anger and began to think about other things. Yang Chen's words seemed to have evidence, but things still needed further verification. It couldn't be said that what Yang Chen said was necessarily the truth. Sometimes a small test was needed in some aspects. For example, now, if Yang Chen was disloyal, he would never take out his life source magic weapon and let others touch it. What made the sect master of the Xintian sect feel relieved was that after hearing what he said, Yang Chen's face showed joy. Without saying anything, he directly took out his life source magic weapon, the Immortal beheading blade, held the hilt upside down, and sent it to the sect master. Why would he use such a blade? Everyone knew about Yang Chen's life, and knew that Yang Chen's life source magic weapon was a blade, but they didn't expect it to be such a fierce-looking blade. Yang Chen replied without hesitation. Before disciples started cultivating, I was an executioner for a period of time. This blade is familiar and full of killing intent, so it's easy to use. Elderly took the Immortal beheading blade and looked at it for a moment before asking curiously, You have a fire spirit root, so why would you use a metal attribute life source magic weapon? Disciple was lucky and discovered a acquired spirit root. Yang Chun turned slightly to elderly and explained with a smile, Disciple's acquired spirit root is of the metal attribute, so I used this blade. Trash. Yang Chen's immortal beheading blade went around in everyone's hands until it finally landed in the hands of the great abstruse immortal elder who suddenly appeared. After waving the immortal beheading blade a few times, he gave this evaluation. To be honest, the essence of the immortal beheading blade was actually a sword case. Before it was installed with a sword soul, it was just an ordinary flying sword. In addition, it didn't have its own weapon spirit, so although the material used for refining was good, it was only in the mortal world and not particularly outstanding. According to the grade of magic weapons in the spiritual world, it was barely second grade at most. In the eyes of an abstruse immortal expert, it was not an exaggeration to call it trash. Disciple's forte is alchemy and fire control. I don't need to fight and kill by myself. A pill reward can naturally solve all the problems. The immortal beheading blade is just a memory of my old life as an executioner. I didn't put much effort into it. Yang Chun didn't dare to slack off in the face of this great master. He explained respectfully, it's natural that Grandmaster doesn't like it. Isn't your wife known as a master refiner? Why didn't she refine it for you? An elder next to the sect master asked curiously. Everyone looked at Yang Chun and waited for Yang Chen's answer. If Yang Chun couldn't give a perfect explanation, everyone would probably doubt Yang Chen's previous words. Disciple's blade is a bit unique. Yang Chun smiled and said calmly, with my wife's ability, she can't refine this blade. Chapter 1638. Oh, what's so special about it? The supreme mystic immortal elder was holding the immortal beheading blade and was about to help Yang Chun refine it. When he suddenly heard Yang Chen's words, he immediately asked curiously, the aura of this disciple's blade is a little different. Yang Chun said respectfully, at the time of refining, I used a piece of material obtained from a demonic sect with killing intent. This disciple was an executioner and was familiar with this killing intent. Later, I went to the immortal falling abyss to practice for a few years. I didn't expect the killing intent to permeate the blade. After Masterly knew about it, he specially strengthened it with a certain material with dragon aura in the sect's collection. After that, my wife wanted to refine it, but she was always blocked by the killing intent and never succeeded. Some auras were not easy to hide, so Yang Chun simply pushed it to the dead sect Masterly. This was also half true. There was killing intent, but it was not a demonic sect material. The experience in the immortal falling abyss only integrated a part of the killing intent of the immortal beheading stage. It was not the killing intent that permeated the blade. This was just to remind the supreme mystic immortal master, lest he rashly refine his magic weapon and suffer a big loss. The supreme mystic immortal master, holding the immortal beheading blade, was a little unconvinced. He just hastily probed the immortal beheading blade and found that it didn't even have a spirit. At most, it was a little stronger than an ordinary life source magic weapon, so he gave it a garbage evaluation. Now Yang Chun actually said so many things, and what killing intent. Using this to explain that Gao Yu couldn't refine it, wasn't it a bit too childish? Thinking of this, the arrogant temperament of the supreme mystic immortal master flared up. Your wife's human immortal junior can't cope with this so-called killing intent. Can I, a dignified supreme mystic immortal master, suppress it? The more Yang Chun said this, the more he wanted to refine this blade for Yang Chun to see. Even Elderly felt that what Yang Chun said was a bit ridiculous, but seeing that he didn't hesitate to take out the immortal beheading blade without any defense, he didn't have much doubt for the time being. But there were some questions that should be understood more during this time. Masterly just asked you to control the Chunyang Palace. Nothing else? The sect master no longer cared about Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber. With the help of the Supreme Elder, there would be no problem. The topic began to change to Yang Chen's undercover mission. Controlling Chunyang Palace is one purpose. Yang Chun nodded quickly and admitted, Another purpose is to rely on the method of refining elixirs and the secret of the Zhao family's manner to make friends with a major sect and consume the property of some other sect appropriately to strengthen Chunyang Palace. When necessary, it will become a powerful arm of our sect. This explanation was reasonable, and everyone nodded as they listened. To be honest, if this was the mission, Yang Chun would have completed it well. In terms of controlling Chunyang Palace, there was no doubt that everyone knew Yang Chen's position in Chunyang Palace. Everyone had no doubt that as long as Yang Chun said that Chunyang Palace would be merged into Xiantian sect today, the entire Chunyang Palace will be changed on the same night without waiting for tomorrow. As for the strengthening of Chunyang Palace, he did an even better job. Now in the mortal world, in addition to the 4 sects, Chunyang Palace was the most powerful. Moreover, Chunyang Palace had a very good relationship with the Taoists, Demons, and Row Cultivators Alliance. There was no need to verify this. Everyone who had ascended for so many years said so. Now everyone admired the sect master of the mortal world's greatest heaven sect to the bone. Although he was a junior, his vision was first class. He could see that Yang Chun was extraordinary and strongly supported him. The current Chunyang Palace could definitely replace the Taishaman, which had been destroyed, and become the foundation of Xiantian sect in the mortal world. What was everyone worried about before? Wasn't it because the Taishaman had been destroyed, and Xiantian sect would soon become a tree without a source? With Chunyang Palace, there was no need to worry at all. The seniors in the immortal world had paid a huge price to send the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals to the mortal world, but no one knew what had happened. If they had known this, there would have been no need to go through so much trouble. As long as they had contacted Yang Chen earlier, there was no need to worry about anything. At the thought that the immortal world might have paid the price of dozens of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals and an innumerable Tribulation True Immortal, the sect master had the urge to hit the wall. It could have been avoided, but because Yang Chun contacted them a little late, it led to these unnecessary losses. However, this could not be blamed on Yang Chun. Yang Chun had already said that he had said the secret code when he was attacked several times, but no one paid attention to it. If Elderly had not led the team this time, Yang Chun would not have had a chance to escape at all. Speaking of which, Yang Chen's secret code could only be used by the highest level and most secretive disciples of Xiantian sect. Except for the core executives, ordinary disciples did not know it at all. There was no other way. Their deaths could only be in vain. The only use was to let outsiders know that Yang Chun had killed a few more disciples of Xiantian sect, so that outsiders would have the impression that Yang Chun and Xiantian sect were irreconcilable enemies. Since Chunyang Palace and Xiantian sect already had this kind of relationship on the surface, it was better to continue this relationship. In this way, it could eliminate the vigilance of other sect to the greatest extent, and it was also conducive to the secret development of Chunyang Palace. By the way, did they only give the sect one prolongation pill in Sheeping Mountain? Finally, an elder asked about the transaction in Sheeping Mountain. Although he knew that it was an allusion to the other sect, he still felt a little uncomfortable. Reporting to Grandmaster, the sect actually occupies the best place in the area of Sheeping Mountain. Yangshin replied with a smile. Spirit veins are nothing. As long as we want to find them, we can find them at any time. However, some of the mineral deposits in the sect's territory are the real treasures. What good things are there? The sect master was also interested and asked curiously. There should be a magma river thousands of feet underground. Yang Chun answered very straightforwardly. In the magma, there is a vein of purple kingdom flame crystal. If it is mined, its value can be compared to 10 heaven immortal spirit veins. What did you say? Purple kingdom flame crystal? The sect master and the elders did not have any reaction to this, but the great supreme elder, who was studying Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber, jumped up when he heard this. Where? Where is it? The core higher-ups did not specialize in refining weapons, so they did not know much about the Purple Kingdom Flame Crystal. However, just by looking at the Great Supreme Elder's expression, they knew that it was definitely a good thing. The Great Supreme Elder had not behaved like this for a long time. I will help you refine your magic treasure now. After refining it, take me to the purple kingdom flame crystal. The great supreme elder's words were very domineering, and he did not allow Yang Chun to refuse. Before waiting for Yang Chun to say anything, he had already begun to move. A powerful spiritual force rushed directly into the immortal beheading saber, and he was about to forcibly refine it. However, as soon as the spiritual force rushed into the immortal beheading saber, the great supreme elder suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, and his whole face turned pale. Chapter 1639. Oh no! Before everyone could react to what had happened, the other supreme elder had already rushed over and punched the blade of the immortal beheading saber, knocking the immortal beheading saber out of the hand of that supreme elder. As soon as the immortal beheading saber left his hand, the first supreme elder seemed to have woken up from a dream, and his expression returned to normal. How could this be? After standing in place for a long time, the supreme elder finally returned to normal, and this was the first sentence that came out of his mouth. Disciple was frightened. Please forgive me, Master Ancestor. Yang Chen's posture at this time was full, as if he had made a mistake and was begging for forgiveness from the ancestral master. It's not your fault. I underestimated the heroes of the world. The supreme elder had the demeanor of a supreme elder, and he couldn't blame a junior for his carelessness. Moreover, this junior had previously said that his saber was filled with killing intent, and others couldn't refine it. It was his arrogance that caused him to suffer a loss, and he couldn't blame others. Although Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber had only integrated a negligible part of the killing intent of the immortal beheading stage, the power that had killed tens of thousands of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals was definitely not something that a small Xian Immortal could completely withstand. Just now, when the spiritual power stimulated the Supreme Elder, he felt the monstrous killing intent and immediately became pale and weak. If the other Supreme Elder hadn't decisively smashed the immortal beheading saber down, he would definitely have been further invaded by the killing intent. Thinking of this, the Supreme Elder also felt a little scared. If it really came to that point, although his life wouldn't be in danger, he would inevitably lose face. In fact, it wasn't that serious. He already had the cultivation of a Xian Immortal, and the killing intent would at most affect him for a while, and he would soon adapt to it and return to normal. It was just that he was attracted by the Purple Kingdom Flame crystal and let his guard down. Coupled with the preconceived fear, he thought that the consequences would be very serious. You're really powerful, and you're actually not afraid of this killing intent. The Supreme Elder, who had recovered, looked at Yang Chun with a little surprise. I was born as an executioner, and I'm not afraid of this from the beginning. Yang Chun explained respectfully again. Although it sounded a little far-fetched, if one thought about it carefully, it could be explained perfectly. After all, Yang Chun had said that he didn't have a strong killing intent in the beginning. It was only after he killed many underground spiritual beasts in the immortal falling abyss that he slowly developed this killing intent. The things of the demon sect were strange. If he killed enough of them, he might have such power. No wonder your wife can't refine it for you. Even I can't guarantee it, let alone her. It had to be said that this grand supreme mystic immortal elder was really able to let go of things easily. At this moment, he seemed to have completely thrown away the awkwardness, as if it had never happened. It was rare for a senior like him to admit his inadequacy in front of a junior. It was not without reason that he could become a grand supreme expert. As soon as he spoke, everyone no longer had any doubts. There was a reasonable explanation for Gao Yu not to help Yang Chun refine his natal magic weapon. Didn't she see that even her own supreme mystic immortal expert admitted that he couldn't do it? Naturally, a minor human immortal junior did not have the ability to do so. Meritorious service must be rewarded. You are lucky. Seeing that the Grand Supreme had given up, the sect master no longer probed further. After thinking about it, he took out something from his Chinquan bag and sent it to Yang Chun. This is something that the sect senior obtained from killing a demon sect expert in the past. He was also full of killing intent. Since you're not afraid, this thing is for you. You can refine it into your natal magic weapon, and it can also improve its grade. Yang Chun had a surprised and happy expression on his face. He took the guillotine-like thing from the sect master's hand with both hands and thanked him once again. However, in addition to surprise, there seemed to be a kind of confusion on his face, as if he didn't know what it was. In the eyes of everyone, there was a burst of relief. If Yangchen knew what it was at a glance, then everyone would be a little worried. Speaking of which, how did you know that Sheeping Mountain has these good things? Elderly seemed to think of something and suddenly asked. When he asked this question, everyone became interested and waited for Yangchen's answer. This disciple has a problem in the mortal world. I like to collect all kinds of miscellaneous books, and I am somewhat not doing proper work. When Yangchen said this, on one hand, he was a little embarrassed. On the other hand, he had a more or less proud expression. By chance, I found a book that I don't know who wrote it, and there were records of these things, including the Sunset Cliff, Linyang River, and the Hatred Parting Sea. There are records of them. As he spoke, Yangchen had already taken out a piece of jade slip that looked very simple. If Gao Yu was beside him, she would definitely recognize that this was the ancient jade slip that Yangchen picked up in the secret area under the Langya well. Yangchen had re-engraved the contents on it, and then used it to fool people. Elderly took the jade slip and examined it. The contents were indeed, as Yangchen said. Sheeping Mountain, Sunset Cliff, Linyang River, these places were all recorded. The places where there were spirit veins, where there were mineral deposits, were clearly recorded. After reading it once, Elderly passed the jade slip to someone else and said with a smile, "In that case, Linyang River really does have a spirit vein of heaven immortal level." This disciple was greedy and occupied the most comfortable place. "Grandmaster, please forgive me." Yangchen acted very magnanimously and immediately bowed to apologize. "When this disciple returns to Chunyang Palace, I will immediately give up the territory to the sect." "No hurry." The sect master directly stopped Yangchen's words and shook his head. "No, these places are best occupied by Chunyang Palace. In the future, when the disciples of Chunyang Palace ascend, we will need Linyang River to develop and grow. If we give it up easily, it will make people doubt the relationship between us. It is better to maintain the status quo." This disciple understands. Yangchen hurriedly accepted the order in a loud voice. "In the future, you still have to target our Xiantian sect in all aspects and put on an opposing posture." The sect master continued to instruct, "Others will never think that our Xiantian sect still has a trump card like you. Don't expose it easily. If Chunyang Palace needs anything, just tell me. Find a secret opportunity, and the sect will send someone to deliver it to you." "Thank you for your concern, Grandmaster," Yangchen said politely. When Master Li was in the mortal world, he had already secretly given this disciple a large number of various resources. This disciple doesn't dare to be greedy anymore. "What did he give you?" the sect master asked casually. Yangchen immediately told him some of the things in the secret reserve of the Taishaman. With this question and answer, those things that couldn't see the light of day had a source. Even if the disciples of Chunyang Palace took it out and used it openly, no one from the Xintian sect would suspect and kill them. To put it bluntly, Yangchen took the opportunity to whitewash these things from being stolen goods to sect Master Li's support at that time. The mortal world is the mortal world, and the spiritual world is the spiritual world. What do you need? Just tell me. The sect master was very interested and didn't hesitate to let Yangchen make his own requests. Chapter 1640. Chunyang Palace still only occupies a piece of territory. Everything in the spiritual realm is starting from scratch. Since the sect master said so, Yangchen was not polite and said directly, "The most urgent thing is that we need a batch of advanced cultivation methods in the spiritual realm. Otherwise, after the disciples ascend, they can only use the cultivation methods of the mortal world to cultivate." "This is easy." The sect master nodded directly, and Elderly, who was next to him, immediately said, "It's not appropriate to take the cultivation methods of the Mysterious Heaven sect directly. The Mysterious Heaven sect has destroyed countless small sects. You can take a copy of the cultivation methods that the sect plundered. I believe that it will be enough to deal with some human immortal cultivators. After a while, I will secretly send you a batch of high-level cultivation methods. Now that it was known that Yang Chun was a secret disciple of the mysterious Heaven sect, then the Chunyang Palace controlled by Yang Chun was clearly the courtyard of the mysterious Heaven sect. Since the disciples of Chunyang Palace were the disciples of the mysterious Heaven sect, who would be stingy with a small cultivation method, they wished they could directly pour all their resources into it, but reality did not allow it. Now, everyone was looking forward to the expressions of the people from the other sect when they found out that the mysterious Heaven sect still had such a strong reserve team. Thank you, Grandmaster. Yang Chen's heart almost bloomed with joy. The problem that had been troubling him before was solved so easily, and there was no future trouble. It was simply impossible not to be happy. This is the sect's help for Chunyang Palace. What do you want? The sect master seemed to be determined to give Yang Chun enough benefits so that he would become a member of the mysterious Heaven sect. Therefore, he was not stingy with giving Yang Chun his own rewards. The ancestor has already rewarded that piece of material to upgrade this disciple's life source magic weapon. This disciple does not dare to be greedy. Yang Chun immediately declined the technique of retreating. In fact, even if Yang Chun didn't get anything now, Yang Chun had already made a huge profit. Not to mention that the sect had obtained a large number of advanced cultivation methods. Just the guillotine that Yang Chun had obtained from the mysterious Heaven sect master was enough to make Yang Chun's performance worth it. The reason why Yang Chun would let the supreme, profound, immortal elder eat a small loss, to put it bluntly, was because of the guillotine in the hands of the profound Heaven sect. This was refined from a piece of abyss fiend iron, and was once the life-bound magic treasure of a great devil. This demon had killed countless lives, so the abyss fiend iron was also contaminated with a powerful killing intent. Although the mysterious Heaven sect paid the price of several heaven immortals to kill this demon, no one could use this guillotine. No one could withstand the killing intent, and no one was willing to accept this weapon. Knowing that there was such a thing, how could Yang Chun not be moved? What did the immortal beheading saber need? Wasn't it this killing intent? The more there was, the more Yang Chun liked it, and Xiao Tian would also be happy. As long as the immortal beheading saber could fuse with this abyss fiend iron guillotine, its grade could directly increase to a 5th or even 6th grade magic treasure. Coupled with the other great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword souls, it was estimated that before Yang Chun ascended to the celestial world, the immortal beheading saber would grow into a 9th grade magic treasure. Of course, the higher-ups of the mysterious Heaven sect didn't know that Yang Chun had done this deliberately. Yang Chun's initiative to refuse meant that he wasn't greedy. If it was before, this guy would definitely be putting on an act, but now that he had become their disciple, he had a good character and was worthy of praise. If I want you to say it, then say it. What big things can you do? Of course, Elderly would fight for more benefits for Yang Chun. It could also be regarded as selling a good deal. He immediately scolded loudly. What do you need? You have just ascended. There are many difficulties, and you need to improve your cultivation base. Yes, then Disciple will be greedy. Yang Chun agreed and said, Disciple wants a new identity as a mysterious Heaven sect disciple, so that I can enter the mysterious Heaven sect openly. This request made the higher-ups feel very considerate. What was a loyal disciple? This was it. He was outside, but he still wanted to become a disciple of the sect and feel what it was like to be a disciple of the sect. Thinking about how Yang Chun was outside alone, apart from occasionally receiving support from Sect Master Li in the mortal world, Yang Chun had to rely on his own efforts, everyone's side. The sect has a cultivation method that allows one to transform at will, but cultivating it requires a huge price. The sect master pondered for a moment and thought of something. He signaled to Elderly, passed that cultivation method to Yang Chun. He turned to face Yang Chun and said gently, Your thoughts are very good. Once this cultivation method is cultivated, you can change your appearance at any time and transform into another person. You can enter the sect openly at any time. Elderly's expression became serious. This was an official cultivation method that the sect master had ordered. As a technique imparting elder, he had to do it properly. However, this cultivation method had to be carried with him at all times. Elderly could only tell Yang Chun that he would bring it to Yang Chun through other methods next time. Disciple would like to ask for some fire seeds. Yang Chun knew that he couldn't just blindly curry favor, so he naturally said his real request. Disciple's forte is controlling fire to refine pills. Collecting fire seeds is Disciple's hobby. I sincerely ask the sect to fulfill my wish. Without waiting for the higher-ups to reply, Yang Chun added, Disciple can use mortal methods and collect them as payment for refining pills. Sure. The sect master nodded his head and turned to Elderly. Don't bother two masters for one matter. Elderly, I'll have to trouble you to collect a batch of fire seeds next time and exchange them with Master Yang Chun for a batch of pills. When he mentioned Master Yang Chun, the sect master had a smile on his face. When the others heard the sect master's words, they also laughed. A group of elders who were much older than Yang Chun calling a junior master was obviously a bit funny. This is the first time I've met all the ancestors, so I have nothing to show my filial piety. I have a few grade 5 life prolonging pills with me. They can probably extend my lifespan by 1,000 years. I respectfully present them to all the ancestors as my greeting gift. Yang Chun was very perceptive. Since they were talking about pills, he immediately took out a jade bottle and presented it to the sect master with both hands. This is Disciple's filial piety. Please don't reject it. His words were sincere. The filial piety from the younger generation of the sect made people feel embarrassed if they didn't accept it. Several people secretly gave a thumbs up in their hearts. Yang Chun, this little guy really knew how to behave. He just gave some benefits here, and he immediately showed his filial piety. No wonder he could become the young palace master in the Chunyang Palace without any foundation. He really had some skills. Since it is the filial piety of the younger generation, sect master, you don't have to be so polite. At this moment, Elderly had completely become the spokesperson of Yang Chun. In turn, he began to persuade the sect master. Don't waste the child's kindness. Chapter 1641. The sect master looked at Elderly with some surprise, and immediately remembered the relationship between Elderly and sect master Li of the mortal world. You, Elderly. The sect master smiled and pointed at Elderly, then shook his head slightly and reached out to take the jade bottle from Yang Chen's hand. I know that this is your close descendant. Even if there is nothing, will we look down on him? This child can manage Chunyang Palace. That is a great contribution. No one can deny it. With Elderly's words, the sect master put away the bottle of prolonging life pills very naturally. One must know that the highest prolonging life pill that Yang Chun had ever heard of was the 4 revolutions prolonging life pill. Yang Chun had never given out the 5 revolutions prolonging life pill. This time, he took out more than 10 5 revolutions prolonging life pills, full of sincerity. Everyone was very happy. Even the Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal Elders were no exception, even though their cultivation could ascend at any time and they didn't need the prolonging life pill at all. However, as long as one was human, there would inevitably be a few relatives and friends. Not everyone had the strength to ascend. Everyone could get a 5 revolutions prolonging life pill, which meant the life of a relative in the future. Actually, the main thing is that this child killed a few disciples of the sect before. Elderly was, of course, trying his best to put in a good word for Yang Chun at this time. When he met those disciples who didn't know the truth and wanted his life, he couldn't just stretch out his neck and kill him, right? These days, he's been feeling guilty. Although he had no choice, it was still considered harming a fellow disciple. According to the sect rules, he had to suffer. Everyone, for the sake of this old man's old face, please give him a lighter punishment. No matter how much credit Yang Chun had made, if there were really people who would not let go of the crime of harming a fellow disciple, they couldn't get around it. This was the right time. When everyone was in a good mood, they brought it up and gave a moderate punishment. In the future, even if someone brought up old scores, they couldn't say anything bad about Yang Chun. The punishment had already been given. Could it be more? For the sake of Yang Chun, Elderly was willing to throw away his old face. As long as Yang Chun passed this hurdle, with the relationship between him and Yang Chun, the greatest credit would be firmly in his hands in the future, and there would be no more accidents. At this time, of course, he would do his best to put in a good word for Yangchun. Unforgivable, pardonable. At this time, the Grand Supreme Elder, who had just suffered a small loss, suddenly interrupted. You can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. In my opinion, you should be punished to refine more high-grade pills for the sect. Since he had taken Yangchun's prolongation pill, he naturally had to put in a good word for Yangchun. Since the Grand Elder had already spoken, apart from the other Grand Elders, there was no one else who had a higher status and seniority than him. Basically, this was the basis for the punishment. Replacing punishment with work wasn't too much to say, was it? Since it is what the Grand Master said, then we will do it. The sect master followed the good advice. If they really punished him at this reunion, wouldn't it spoil the mood? However, the sect master was also a quick-witted person. He immediately said what he meant. Since you are being punished to refine a high-grade medicinal pill, a fifth revolution medicinal pill is not considered a high-grade pill in the spiritual realm. How could Elderly not understand the meaning of the sect master? He immediately said, Yangchun, you must bear in mind the sect master's cultivation. Next time, I will bring you some of the experience of the sect's alchemists. You can't let down the Grand Supreme and the sect master's expectations. Disciple thanks the Grand Masters. If there were benefits, Yangchun would not be pretentious. He would accept it and thank them, and this matter would become a real thing. Who would jump out to oppose the meaning of the Grand Supreme and the core senior members of the Xintian sect? However, in the future, we still have to create a situation where Chunyang Palace and the Xintian sect are irreconcilable enemies. This kind of thing is inevitable. What should we do? Now that he had passed this hurdle, how should he deal with things in the future? Elderly was very thoughtful and asked everyone when they were present. It had to be said that Elderly had put in a lot of effort for his junior's grand disciple. Everything was considered very carefully. He would never let Yangchun suffer any grievances. It was really a very comfortable thing to have a big shot to shelter him from the wind and rain. It's simple. In the future, if there are disciples who violate the sect rules and need to be executed, let them make up for their crimes with meritorious service. Next to him, Hall Master Lu of the Law Enforcement Hall waved his hand and said, seal half of the cultivation of those disciples who have made mistakes. Make up a personal reason and ask them to kill Yangchun. Send them to his door to be killed. With a few more disciples like this, you will become a thorn in the side of my Xintian sect. Ha ha ha. Although not long ago, this group of people in front of them were also talking about Yangchun, the feeling was completely different when they said the same thing. Everyone laughed when they heard this. This problem was solved too easily. It was simply killing two birds with one stone. Then, doesn't that make Yangchun an outer disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall? Elderly teased with a smile. He didn't mean to say it, but Hall Master Lu of the Law Enforcement Hall thought of something. Yangchun also wants the identity of an official disciple of the Xintian sect. In my opinion, he should be placed in my Law Enforcement Hall. Hall Master Lu waved his hand and said, the Law Enforcement Hall is a secret law enforcement officer. This identity is very suitable. It was obvious that Yangchun had made great contributions. This old man, Li Heyu, relied on the fact that he was the ancestor of Sect Master Li in Immortal World and took the lead. However, in the future, Yangchun would definitely make more contributions. By pulling him into the Law Enforcement Hall, his Law Enforcement Hall would have more friends. This idea was good. The others were a step behind. Since Hall Master Lu Xiuqi had already spoken, there was no reason for them to fight. The only one who had a chance was the Medicine Hall Master. Unfortunately, the Medicine Hall Master was not qualified to enter the core higher-ups and was not present. Everyone could only watch as Yangchun was taken into the Law Enforcement Hall. Hall Master Lu acted quickly. Just as everyone nodded, a jade token representing the Law Enforcement Hall's law enforcement officer was delivered to Yangchun's hand. With this jade token, even if Yangchun hadn't cultivated the cultivation method to change his appearance, as long as he covered his face and held the jade token, he would be able to swagger into the Xintian sect. No one would dare to stop him. Then let's do it like this. Yangchun, don't worry. The sect will never forget your contributions. Now that the situation had reached this point and everything had been properly arranged, it was about time for them to part ways. Before they parted, Sect Master Wang encouraged Yang Chun. Disciple still has one more thing. Seeing that everyone was about to leave, Yang Chun hurriedly asked them to stay. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Yang Chun quickly said, Disciple encountered the Zhao family in the spirit realm. Chapter 1642. Zhao family. Sect Master Wang was startled and immediately reacted. The Zhao family in the demon seal array? It's that Zhao family. Yang Chun nodded and said loudly, They sent 2 people that wanted to harm this disciple, but they were killed by this disciple instead. But before they died, they seemed to say that the matter of the Zhao family in the mortal world must be investigated. The demon continent was made by the Zhao family. This matter was not only known to other sects, but also to the profound heaven sect. The demon seal array, something that even the profound heaven sect had not made, had been used by the Zhao family for many years. Such a family hidden in the dark, any sect would break out in a cold sweat when they talked about it. They had the strength, they had the forbearance. In addition to knowing in the mortal world that they had made the demon continent, they also made a black tortoise of the earth immortal grade 4. When they thought that if this family wanted to, a black tortoise could kill all the cultivators in the world, everyone's heart palpitated. Such a crazy family. What do they want to do hiding in the dark? Before Yang Chun discovered the demon seal array, everyone never knew the existence of the Zhao family, and they knew nothing about their purpose. Yang Chun gave it thoroughly this time, and directly brought a batch of confidential information obtained from the Zhao family manor. Everyone couldn't care about anything else now. After carefully reading the jade slips provided by Yang Chun, they all frowned at the same time. This family was definitely not a friend of the major sects, and they were even completely standing on the opposite side of the cultivators. If everyone knew what they wanted, then it was fine. Whether it was seeking revenge, a struggle for interests, or simply playing a bastard, it didn't matter, but everyone didn't know what they were asking for. The unknown would make people feel really scared, and if they really knew, they would have a strategy to deal with it. This disciple always feels that what they want is too big. Yang Chun gave such an inference, but no one would say that Yang Chun's inference was unreliable. After all, it was Yang Chun who was in direct contact with the Zhao family. Judging from the means of the Zhao family, not to mention the demon continent, even the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island could be won over, which was not an ordinary thing to guard against. In the past, they could make a move against the Green Jade Immortal Island. Who knew if there were any Zhao family members among the elders of the profound heaven sect today? At the thought that the sect might have been infiltrated for thousands of years without anyone knowing, everyone felt a headache coming on. This kind of infiltration method had always been used by mysterious heaven sect on other sects. For example, a secret disciple like Yang Chun slowly gained control of the sect. No one had ever dared to use this method on mysterious heaven sect. However, the Zhao family was clearly not one of them. The 2 people this disciple met both had a similar zither on them. They were exactly the same. Since he had thrown out the bait, he naturally had to put in enough capital. Yang Chun directly took out 2 ancient zither and placed them in front of everyone. This ancient zither is weird. 2 of the strings are secretly made from the tendons of Lanwu Jiao. It took this disciple 10 years to discover the mystery. At that time, Yang Chun's 10 years of refining the great principal golden immortal had now become 10 years of retreat to discover the secret of the ancient zither. As long as the people of the profound heaven sect asked Tao Junkie, it would be clear. Tao Junkie would definitely not say that her husband was aware of the danger. She would only say that he had been in retreat for 10 years. In this way, the time and things could all be matched. The disciple of the profound heaven sect who had already obtained an ancient zither was likely to have a tragedy. However, this was exactly what Yang Chun wanted. It was definitely unrealistic to dig out the entire Zhao family by himself and Li Cheng. It was more reliable to pull in several major sects. It was best to pull in the demon sect and the monster race. That was the best. This matter also had an additional benefit for Yang Chun. That was, so many sect could help Yang Chun collect ancient zither. Yang Chun could even easily wait for the result without having to run around himself. The destruction of the mortal sect. This disciple also suspects that the Zhao family is involved. Yang Chun simply put the blame on the Zhao family. After all, when this disciple got the information of the Zhao family, he first sent a copy to Master Li. Chunyang Palace only left a large part. The real core information is in the hands of Master Li. The implication was that the Zhao family might have relied on some kind of secret method to know that some core secrets were mastered by the Taishaman. So they had the heart to destroy the Taishaman and then took action. Thinking about it, it was indeed very possible. Since the Zhao family could pull the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island to the family. Who knew if there were spies of the Zhao family among the core elders of the mortal Taishaman? Previously, under Yang Chen's speculation, everyone had begun to doubt Yang Lan and Yang Lan's brother and sister. But the two juniors in the Jidan stage actually knew the special formation I of the universe everlasting essence suppressing formation, which was a bit unrealistic. Perhaps behind Yang Lan and Yang Lan stood the Zhao family, and everything was pushed behind by the Zhao family, or it had nothing to do with the Zhao family. But in any case, the Zhao family could be said to be the hidden public enemy of the world. This was the common thought of several major sects. Even if there was no relationship of extermination, there was no psychological pressure to deal with the Zhao family. So, Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei were specially sent to the sect by you. Since the Zhao family was mentioned, some old things were also mentioned. Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei were sent to the Taishaman team when the Zhao family Black Tortoise was facing its tribulation. Now that he thought about it, it was obviously related to Yang Chun. It is the arrangement of this disciple. Master Li also knows it, but he didn't say it to others. Yang Chun admitted it neatly. Anyway, with the identity of the secret disciple, everything could be explained. However, Yang Chun still said with a little regret, this disciple's original intention was to let the sect master some secrets of the Green Jade Immortal Island. But I didn't expect the young sect master to do that kind of thing. Bei Shuangyu could be said to be a primer for the exposure of the Great Free Demon Heart Sutra. This matter now involved the Zhao family. In this way, if Yang Lan and Yang Lan were confirmed to have cultivated the Great Free Demon Heart Sutra, they would be linked to the Zhao family, and it would become more and more confusing. You can't enter the sect, and the things that happen later have nothing to do with you. Sect Master Wang waved his hand directly. Yang Chun had nothing to do with this matter. Sending Bei Shuangyu to the Taishaman disciples was a meritorious deed. Later, it was destroyed by Li Heng, and it was absolutely not related to Yang Chun. This disciple dares to ask the ancestors. Yang Chun saw that it was almost time, and asked again. The sect had just studied the universe everlasting spirit suppressing formation hundreds of years ago. Which predecessor sent the news to the mortal world at that time? Chapter 1643. Some things couldn't stand the thought of it, and they would find themselves sinking deeper and deeper. After the Xintian sect was destroyed by the Taishaman, they almost turned over the entire Xintian sect, but they could not find the person who passed the universe everlasting spirit-suppressing formation to the lower realm. From Yang Lan's mouth, they knew that it was Lu Fengzi, but Lu Fengzi had not been exposed to these formations for a long time, and during that time, he had been responsible for certain things in the sect. Whether in terms of time or ability, it was impossible. Even the group of people who were proficient in formations did not know the existence of the special formation I until the Taishaman's accident, let alone Lu Fengzi, who had no research on formations at all. Therefore, this matter must have been done in the name of Lu Fengzi. According to reason, Li Liheng's cultivation of the spatial spiritual awareness cultivation method, except for himself and a few core high-level members, no one else should know at all. However, Yang Lan said the name of Lu Fengzi, which could only explain one thing. Either Li Liheng accidentally leaked it, or Yang Lan used some means to know it. When they thought that the Taishaman in the mortal world were fooled by such a guy who used the name of a master of the Xintian sect, everyone's heart was even more cold. What kind of person had the ability to do this? How familiar was this person with the internal structure of the Xintian sect? Combined with Yang Chen's reminder that the Zhao family was very good at forbearance and lurking, coupled with the example of the Elder Bay of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Sect Master Wang suddenly discovered that it seemed that these core high-level members around him were not so trustworthy. Everyone also thought of such a possibility, and everyone's face was covered with a layer of frost. A little suspicion was likely to lead to a great turmoil in the sect. No one wanted to be the one who was suspected, but who could explain it clearly? This disciple is bold. In the awkward silence of everyone, Yang Chen's voice seemed so obvious, according to this disciple's guess. Even if the Zhao family has someone lurking in the sect, their status will not be too high. What do you mean by this? When several core high-level members heard this, their hearts were all relieved. As long as everyone was not suspicious, everything was fine. Elderly immediately asked anxiously. In this situation, it seemed that only him asking would make everyone feel less awkward. If it's really the higher-ups, why didn't they take advantage of the tense relationship between our sect and the other sect to stir up trouble when they could incite the destruction of the mortal world's sect? Yang Chun shared his guess. At that time, I believe that all the major sect wanted our sect to give an explanation. As long as a senior or an elder stirred up some trouble, I believe that those sect in the spiritual realm would not let go of the opportunity to attack our sect. This analysis was very reasonable. Everyone understood the situation at that time. It was really dangerous. If they were not careful, they would follow in the footsteps of the Taishaman in the mortal world. Fortunately, the Black Heaven sect had a deep foundation, and at that time, the sect was restrained, so there was no conflict. What Yang Chun said was really close to the truth. Please forgive me for speaking bluntly. At that time, there was a chance to wipe out our sect in one fell swoop. If it was me, I would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Yang Chun said very straightforwardly, no matter what the Zhao family wanted to do, the chaos in the spiritual realm was only good for them. Since our sect worked together to overcome the crisis, the Zhao family definitely did not have a chance to enter the higher-ups. Yang Chen's words made the frost on everyone's faces disappear, and they all revealed smiles. The words were very reasonable. It also proved that everyone was reliable. Even if there was a little disrespect in Yang Chen's words, and even the assumption that he would take the opportunity to destroy the sect was said, the more this was the case, didn't it prove that Yang Chen's heart was in the sect? After a short period of mutual suspicion, the higher-ups returned to a harmonious scene. This was all because of a few words from Yang Chun. Now, the higher-ups looked at Yang Chun, and the more they looked at him, the more satisfied they became. He had the ability, the means, and the brains. This disciple of the mortal world's sect master Li was absolutely perfect. We will carefully investigate the matter of the Zhao family when we return. Sect Master Wang was in a good mood, and he even said his plan. Yang Chun, you can relax and do what you have to do. The sect can't give you obvious support, but as long as someone dares to target you, the sect will definitely find an irrelevant reason to make them disappear. Basically, this sentence had already announced the death penalty for those who showed hostility to Yang Chun. If the Black Heaven sect wanted to find trouble with someone, even a Heaven Immortal expert would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Black Heaven sect. If there is a chance, this disciple will pull in the other sect. If the sect finds a similar zither, give it to this disciple, and this disciple will use it to persuade the other sect. After Yang Chun expressed his gratitude, he made a small request. We can't always work for our sect, and the other sect can't just watch the show. We have to make them work harder. In that case, you can put away this zither first. Sect Master Wang was in a good mood. Yang Chen's consideration was very thorough. He even included the other sect, so how could he not be satisfied? He immediately said, in the future, if the sect finds something similar, they will send it to you. You are right. We can't let them watch the show. Ha ha. The group of higher-ups laughed heartily. Elder Li was even more gratified. Having such a grand disciple of another generation really made him proud. On the way here, Yang Chun had given him 10 5 revolutions life-prolonging pills. With these pills, it was enough for him to rope in another 10 Heaven Immortals, and the strength of his branch would increase greatly. All of this was because of Yang Chun. If he didn't nurture such a disciple, would he nurture ingrates like Yang Lan and Yang Lan? He had already made up his mind. This time, when he went back, he would not care about anything else. He would search carefully for the elixir concoction techniques and prescriptions of the experts in the medicinal hall and prepare them for Yang Chun. He would first take 2 of the best alchemy furnaces for Yang Chun to choose. He would also collect as many suitable metal-type materials as possible. As for the fire seeds that Yang Chun needed, he had to collect them. Yang Chun was one of them, so no matter what, he had to nurture them vigorously. As for cultivation methods, Elderly was the cultivation imparting elder, so there was no need to talk about all kinds of high-level cultivation methods. He would first pick the good ones and send them over. Sect Master Wang's thinking was a little different from Elderly's. As the sect master, he naturally had to consider more things. The first important thing was, of course, to interrogate Yang Lan and Yang Lan after returning to the sect. The second was how to secretly support Chunyang Palace. At least on the surface, there had to be an excuse for the disciples of the Xiantian sect not to find trouble with Chunyang Palace. Yes, Yang Chen's prolonging life pill was a good reason to let several heaven immortal elders with status put on the posture of asking for the pill. Yang Chen could then make this request. It was simple and direct, and in the eyes of outsiders, it was very reasonable. Chapter 1644. Yang Chen left the secret plane alone without anyone noticing. 2 days after Yang Chen left, in another direction of the same place, the core senior members of the Xiantian sect secretly appeared and then quickly disappeared. A supreme mystic immortal elder used the fastest flying magic weapon to bring everyone back to the Xiantian sect. Others didn't know that Li Heng, the young master of the Teshiment in the mortal world, cultivated the spatial spiritual cultivation technique, but the core senior members of the Xiantian sect knew it. Therefore, after returning to the sect, Sect Master Wang immediately arranged for one of the core elders to investigate the disciples who had access to the spatial spiritual cultivation technique. At the beginning, the supreme mystic immortal expert who discovered the flaws in the Zizai Demon Heart Sutra's method of controlling people began to quietly investigate the disciples who had been in contact with Yang Lan and Yang Lan to see if anyone had been controlled by the Zizai Demon Heart Sutra. Hall Master Liu of the Law Enforcement Hall secretly began to investigate which disciple of the sect had the kind of ancient zither that Yang Chun had. Since there could be 2 identical zither, it might be some kind of token of the Zhao family. It could be imagined that some poor disciple would suffer for no reason, and the ancient zither would be secretly sent to Yang Chun. Another elder was secretly investigating the disciples who were responsible for studying the Qian Kun Wuji Yuan suppression formation. From the disciples who mentioned this research direction at that time, to who participated in the research at that time, which unrelated disciples expressed interest in it during the research process, and so on. Only Elderly was working hard to prepare everything that Yang Chen needed. This was his own initiative to apply, and it was also a kind of performance that he took the initiative to give up some credit. Yang Chen provided detailed information and multiple guesses. In any case, as long as the clues were investigated, it would be credit. Elderly already had Yang Chen as his grand disciple, so it was not good to compete for these credits. He simply gave some real benefits to his grand disciple. No matter how much he gave, it was estimated that no one would say anything. Moreover, everyone had accepted Yang Chen's 5-turn life prolonging pill, and the awkwardness of everyone's suspicion of each other was resolved. This big favor had not been returned yet. So who would have an opinion? Putting everything else aside, that Grand Supreme Xian Immortal Elder's guess was absolutely correct. Yang Lan cultivated the Free Demon Heart Sutra and discovered the benefits of controlling people's hearts. How could he bear not to use it in the spiritual world? After the secret investigation of the Great Elder, the old man soon discovered that among the disciples who first contacted Yang Lan and Yang Lan, there were already more than a dozen who showed signs of being controlled. With the expansion of the scope of the investigation, not only some of the disciples that Yang Lan slowly came into contact with were controlled, but even half of the people who had been interrogated by the law enforcement hall were unknowingly controlled by him. What was even more shocking was that Yang Lan even controlled a few people to secretly capture 2 female rogue cultivators as furnaces for him to continue to cultivate the free demon heart sutra in the spiritual world. Yang Lan's arrangement was very secretive. If it weren't for the Supreme Master, the average person might be deceived by him. The iron-like facts showed that Yang Lan was the culprit who cultivated the free demon heart sutra, but let the Taishaman Li Liheng Yang sect master take the blame. Yang Lan's identity in Immortal World was the steward around the Yang sect master. With such a connection, the Great Elder could even draw a conclusion that the Yang sect master had been controlled by Yang Lan, and then cultivated the free demon heart sutra without his knowledge. Anyone would think so. How could a promising young sect master of the Taishaman go to cultivate the forbidden cultivation method of the demon sects in order to improve his spiritual awareness cultivation a few years earlier? Cultivators were not mortals. Those ants only had a few decades of lifespan. How could the young sect master, who was personally taught by sect master Li, be so short-sighted? All the spearheads pointed to Yang Lan. Relatively speaking, Yang Lan had no crisis. She was originally a woman who was willing to sacrifice for her brother. After coming to the spiritual world, there was no big problem with all her actions. She just followed Yang Lan's instructions. Many things in Immortal World could not be verified, including whether the disciple who opened the demon seal formation was once controlled by Yang Lan. However, from the inference point of view, Yang Lan was the most suspicious one. In any case, it was a fact that Yang Lan cultivated the free demon heart sutra, and it was also a fact that he succeeded in ascending, but other people were destroyed. At this point in the investigation, everyone could basically determine that Yang Lan was the culprit who directly caused the free demon heart sutra incident, and even the suspicion of opening the demon seal formation before the destruction of his sect could not be ruled out. Wolf's ambition, let me kill him. The eyes of Hall Master Lu of the Law Enforcement Hall almost popped out. Seeing the results of the investigation of the Great Elder, Yang Lan even dared to control the disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall. This guy was obviously the culprit of the destruction of the Taishaman. Hall Master Lu hated that he could not cut Yang Lan into 2 pieces with a sword. My Taishaman had hundreds of thousands of disciples. Because of him, the whole sect was destroyed. Isn't it too easy for him to die? Sect Master Wang, who had always been calm, also had an expression of gnashing his teeth at this time. Such an expression had only appeared a few times. The last time was because he heard that the Taishaman in the mortal world were destroyed, and this time it was confirmed that Yang Lan cultivated the free demon heart sutra. Capture him immediately and interrogate him with torture. Of course, Hall Master Lu agreed with this point of view. Let him die was too easy for him. I want to use the most vicious taboo method of the demon sect to make him beg for death. To let the dignified law enforcement hall master of the Xintian sect say that he wanted to use the most vicious taboo method of the demon sect, one could imagine how angry his heart had reached. What was even more incredible was that when he said this, several other core members of the Xintian sect, including Sect Master Wang, did not object. Yang Lan had no idea that his affairs had been exposed. Before, because of Zhu Yixian's death, Yang Lan had suffered a lot. Fortunately, he was alert. After taking advantage of the limited opportunity to control a disciple of the law enforcement hall, the following days were much better. After controlling several law enforcement hall disciples, the impact of that matter had basically been minimized. Now Yang Lan had become official ordinary disciples of the Xintian sect, and Yang Lan had made friends with several stewards. The brother and sister could always get some small fat jobs. Whether it was the quota or the cultivation guidance, they were always a little better than other ordinary disciples, but they were not too out of line and caused people to be jealous. It had to be said that if there was no Yang Chen's reminder, Yang Lan's life would get better and better. Even slowly, he would become a small steward. His status would slowly rise, and everything would be easy. Unfortunately, his good luck ended here. Chapter 1645. Yang Lan fainted inexplicably. When he woke up, he found that he had come to a very strange place. What made Yang Lan a little afraid was that he didn't even know how he fainted. A supreme, profound, immortal elder dealt with a junior who had just reached the 4th grade of human immortal. Naturally, it was impossible to let him know the process. This time, the person who appeared in front of Yang Lan couldn't imagine it at all. When Lu Xiuqi of the law enforcement hall began to interrogate Yang Lan with a posture of interrogating a prisoner, Yang Lan finally noticed that something was wrong. What Lu Xiuqi asked was all the content that he and Yang Lan had made up before, and they were all things that happened in the mortal world. However, the slight difference was that this time, Lu Xiuqi asked very detailed questions, so detailed that why the young sect master Li Lihing punished the brother and sister at that time, what happened before and after Li Lihing's expression and so on, everything was detailed. If it was just Yang Lan alone, Yang Lan could of course make up a set of questions himself, and then use his good eloquence to muddle through. However, this matter also involved his sister, Yang Lan. It was conceivable that Yang Lan would also be questioned in detail in another place. Although the brother and sister had spoken to each other before, how could they possibly say such detailed details in unison? As long as the law enforcement hall tracked it down in more detail, Yang Lan was afraid that the 2 female cauldrons that he had secretly hidden might be found out. Sometimes it was really what he was afraid of. Here, Yang Lan was just worried that the female cauldrons would be found out. Over there, he saw 2 female cauldrons that had been tossed by him. Demon Heart Sutra is a good cultivation. Lu Xiuqi gritted his teeth, and the voice made Yang Lan's soul fly away. The moment he listened to the voice, Yang Lan understood that he was finished. He couldn't deny it, even if he wanted to. But this feeling was only for a moment. The instinct to survive made Yang Lan's brain turn hundreds of times faster than usual. One reason after another appeared in his mind, and then disappeared. He hurriedly looked for a few opportunities to survive. Next, naturally, it was a big suffering again and again. Yang Lan hated that he was already dead. However, this guy's way to live was really amazing. Even at this point, he still stubbornly stuck to what he had said before and didn't change a single word. Yang Lan knew very well that once he admitted it, he would definitely die without a burial place. If he didn't admit it, no one could testify. The sect must have found some clues, which was why they did this to the 2 of them. Their ultimate goal was just to find out more inside information. As long as he could endure this period, he would still have a good life in the future. Unfortunately, Yang Lan didn't know that Yang Chen's words had completely doomed his end. No matter how much he insisted on his own words, the higher-ups of the Xiantian sect no longer believed him. Yang Lan was one of the main culprits of the Taishaman's annihilation. They have determined that the only thing the senior executives want to know now is whether Yang Lan and the Zhao family are really involved. The unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra's method of controlling a person's heart is actually not the most brilliant. Next to Hall Master Lu, a strong man with an unremarkable appearance came out. He looked very ordinary, even like an ordinary aborigine. With a slow pace, he walked over to Yang Lan easily. As he walked, he said, "The real means of control, you are still far from it." Although this person didn't look outstanding at all, Yang Lan noticed a sense of despair from the bottom of his heart and pervaded his whole body. Next, Yang Lan's consciousness fell into darkness. When Yang Lan woke up again, he still saw Hall Master Lu of the law enforcement hall. The unremarkable man had disappeared. In front of Hall Master Lu, there was a piece of jade slip that recorded something, and Hall Master Lu was looking at Yang Lan with interest at the moment. "You're awake?" In Hall Master Lu's words at the moment, there was no longer the kind of hatred from before. Instead, there was a kind of warmth that seemed to be caring. However, such a tone made Yang Lan feel even more desperate. This old man has lived for 4,000 years, and this is the first time I admire a younger generation junior so much. Hall Master Lu's words were calm, as if he was narrating a completely unrelated thing to him. At a young age, but with the cultivation base of the Jedon stage, you can make such a feat, kid. You're the first person I have ever seen in my life. The calmer the words were, the more Yang Lan was afraid, and even his body began to tremble. Yang Lan didn't dare to speak during Hall Master Lu's speech. He didn't know what kind of ending he would face. Now Yang Lan didn't dare to expect to survive at all. He just wanted to have a happy way to die. He cultivated the unrestrained demon heart sutra and then put all the blame on the young sect master. Even the kidnapping of the female furnace was under the guise of the young sect master. He didn't bear any responsibility at all. Brilliant. Hall Master Lu clapped his hands as if he was really praising Yang Lan's brilliant means. At the critical moment, he made a prompt decision and immediately abolished the young sect master, so that he couldn't defend himself and could only eat this loss. Good decision. Another sentence of praise, and Hall Master Lu's tone was full of praise. Knowing that the heaven and earth infinite spirits suppressing formations is very dangerous, but he still took his sister to take the risk. Good courage. Knowing that he was likely to face the crisis of the demonic seal formation blocking the tribulation. So a few years in advance, he controlled the elder who was in charge of the formation plate, and at the last moment, he suddenly released the demonic seal formation to trigger the tribulation. Good foresight. Before ascending, he calculated everything. All kinds of causes and consequences were thought out flawlessly. When he came to the spiritual world, if he didn't use the means of the Supreme Elder, no one could really expose him. Good calculation. Hall Chief Lu's series of praises were brilliant and varied. Yang Lan's heart had completely sunk into the abyss. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't move at all and couldn't mobilize his spiritual power, he would have already blown up his body and killed himself. You alone played the world around. The dignified Tao sect's #1 sect with hundreds of thousands of disciples was destroyed because of you, just to take your sister to ascend. Good courage. After praising him once again, Hall Master Lu changed his tone and asked curiously, "Such a magnificent feat. Even this old man feels that he is inferior. However, this old man does not understand why you would not let go of a tenant farmer's son. Isn't this a little imperfection in an otherwise perfect situation? Things have come to this, but I ask for a quick death." Yang Lan had no interest in talking. He only asked for a quick death. "Do you want to die?" Hall Master Lu's voice suddenly became gloomy. This old man is reluctant to give up. Chapter 1646. The lives and reputation of hundreds of thousands of Taishaman's disciples have been ruined. Do you think your life can make up for it? Hall Master Lu didn't intend to let Yang Lan die from the beginning. Of course, he didn't intend to let him live either. Even if you die 10,000 times, you can't make up for it. Take it slowly. Yang Lan didn't know what method Hall Master Lu would use. He only knew that his life was over. In the same way, Yang Chen didn't know what method Hall Master Lu would use. In his previous life, Yang Chen's crime was to kill the young sect Master Li Liheng. However, the young sect Master Li Liheng in his previous life was not as important as the Li Liheng in this life. In his previous life, Li Liheng didn't even touch the border of the cross-border spiritual awareness cultivation method. Not to mention cross-border communication, his own cultivation base didn't even break through the Yuanying stage. As for the way of doing things, Li Liheng in his previous life was a playboy. Yang Chun killed Li Liheng in his previous life. In a sense, it could be regarded as solving the embarrassment of Taishaman. Therefore, even if he was chased, it didn't make people hate Yang Lan to the point where they now hated Yang Lan. Yang Lan's actions were more than 10,000 times more serious than Yang Chen's in his previous life. The entire Taishaman sect was abruptly destroyed, and people didn't do much. It was completely affected by the tribulation triggered by Yang Lan opening the demon sealing formation. Even Xintian sect's face had suffered a major loss. At this time, the Xintian sect hated Yang Lan, the culprit, so much that they wanted to eat his flesh. How would Hall Master Lu deal with Yang Lan? Yang Chen was no longer interested. Anyway, Yang Chen knew that after this time, even if Yang Lan had a great ability, it would be impossible to turn up any waves. In his previous life, Yang Chen suffered for tens of thousands of years. If he killed Yang Lan with a knife, wouldn't it be too easy for him? Letting the Xintian sect think of ways to torture Yang Lan was the real way to vent his anger. After leaving the secret plane of the Xintian sect, the first thing Yang Chen did was to find a direction at random and then escape thousands of miles away. After confirming that no one was following them and that there were no other cultivators around, Yang Chun let out an extremely presumptuous laugh. The laughter lasted for the time it takes half an incense stick to burn. Yang Chun laughed until he was on the verge of tears. Only then did he slowly stop. Was there anything more comical than this? The culprit behind the destruction of the Taishaman sect had turned into a spy planted by the Taishaman in the mortal world. He had appeared in front of the Black Heaven sect's sect master, core elders, and grand supreme elders. Not only had he been rewarded, but he had also been praised. The current situation was that Chunyang Palace, which had no foundation in the spiritual realm, had to be careful with every step it took for fear of causing calamity. From now on, Chunyang Palace no longer had to worry about this problem. The original life and death enemy, the Shantian sect, would be like taking care of a baby in swaddling clothes. They would carefully take care of Chunyang Palace and support its development. By the way, they would also find some reasons to eradicate those who were malicious to Chunyang Palace. Was there anything more wonderful than developing under the wings of the enemy? The most wonderful thing about the whole process was that everything was a one-way contact between Yang Chun and the core high level of the Shintian sect. Whether it was the Shintian sect or Chunyang Palace, no one else knew about it. In other words, as long as Yang Chun did not show any flaws, the whole thing would not go wrong. At this point, the possibility of Yang Chun making mistakes was basically non-existent. Of course, the most important thing was that Yang Lan cooperated well. From the beginning of the idea of the Demon Heart Sutra in the mortal world, Yang Lan, under the stimulation and guidance of Yang Chun, began to target Li Liheng step by step according to Yang Chen's design. Finally, under the pressure of Yang Chun, he successfully controlled the Demon Seal Formation disc and solved the Taishaman perfectly. Yang Chen's analysis and Yang Lan's actions were simply a mess. Even when Hall Master Lu and the Supreme Elder went out to interrogate Yang Lan, it was carried out within the framework that Yang Chun had delineated in advance. Everything was seamless. Yang Lan completely became Yang Chen's pledge of allegiance to the Shintian sect. Of course, the magic stroke was the appearance of the Zhao family. It was difficult to make the core high level of the Shintian sect completely believe that everything was done by Yang Lan, a junior in the Jidan stage. However, the mysterious Zhao family immediately provided infinite possibilities. Even if Yang Lan was interrogated, there was no shadow of the Zhao family. However, in the hearts of everyone, they would only believe that the Zhao family was secretive, and Yang Lan was also a poor person who was used. All of this added up really gave Yang Chun too many reasons to laugh. And no matter how high Yang Chen's state of mind was, when he encountered this kind of thing, he laughed for a long time before he calmed down. It was not an unexpected harvest, but the return was so rich. After Yang Chun was happy, he found a suitable place. The first thing he did was to take out the cultivation method that could change his appearance at any time. Even Yang Chun had not encountered such a high-level item in the immortal world. As Sect Master Wang said, the difficulty of cultivation was too high, and ordinary people could not complete it all. 99 out of 100 people would give up halfway. Sect Master Wang took out this cultivation method as a reward and a test at the same time. If Yang Chun could cultivate it, it would be a reward. If he could not cultivate it, it would be equivalent to Yang Chun wasting an opportunity. It was not that it would have any opinions on him. At most, it would give people an evaluation of insufficient qualifications or impatience. After roughly scanning through it, even Yang Chun had to put down this cultivation method called the manifestation art. It was not something that a human immortal could cultivate. Even if someone as powerful as Yang Chun wanted to forcibly cultivate it, it would not be something that could be done overnight. He would need to do a lot of preparation work before he could start. After putting away the manifestation art, Yang Chun took out the guillotine made of abyss demon iron. This was originally the life source magic weapon of an old demon. This old demon originally cultivated the path of killing, but he killed indiscriminately, causing a famous sect like the mysterious Heaven sect to eliminate him. Naturally, this life source magic weapon became the spoils of war of the mysterious Heaven sect. Because this guillotine had killed too many creatures, its killing intent was almost condensed. Ordinary Tao sect disciples could not control it, so it was left in the sect, and no one cared about it. With one sentence from Yang Chun, Sect Master Wang immediately gave this thing that was useless to others to Yang Chun. Sect Master Wang and Elderly had met for the first time, so they did not completely trust each other. For Yang Chun, getting this guillotine was enough. The only shortcoming of the Immortal beheading saber was that its grade was too low. It was much worse than the other 9 great Yin Yang 5 elements flying sword. With this guillotine, this shortcoming could finally be made up for. Chapter 1647. What Yang Chun had to do was to fuse this guillotine into Immortal beheading saber. In the past, this process might have been a little difficult, but now that Yang Chun had the white fire seed that Li Chang had given him, there was almost no difficulty in fusing it. The most important thing was that, wrapped in the yin-yang heaven-burning fire, the killing intent in the guillotine wouldn't be damaged during the fusion process. The fusion was just the most basic way to improve the quality of Immortal beheading saber. The real supplement was the killing intent left behind by who knew how many creatures the old devil had killed. This was his own life source magic weapon. Even if it was Yang Chun, he had to be careful when refining it. However, Yang Chun had still underestimated the white fire seed that his sworn brother had given him. The guillotine had only stayed in the yin-yang heaven-burning fire for less than 2 days before it turned into pure abyss fiend iron. The liquid abyss fiendish iron quickly fused with the Immortal beheading blade, turning the blade into a dark green color. It gave off a simple and unadorned aura. The style was still the same as the Immortal slaying saber, but its overall grade had been improved qualitatively. Just the supplement of the spirit realm's materials allowed the Immortal slaying saber to be upgraded by 2 grades, and this didn't include the supplements that followed. Immortal beheading saber had already fused with part of the killing intent of the Immortal beheading platform. Although it was only a very small part, it was still the killing intent of the Immortal beheading platform. It had to be known that the worst immortals were Xian immortals who were qualified to enter the Immortal beheading platform. Yang Chun simply called this high-level killing intent high-end. It was very clear that a real murderous saber shouldn't only have high-end things, but should also have low-end and mid-end things to balance it out. The killing intent in the old devil's guillotine completely made up for this shortcoming. Yang Chun himself disdained to kill mortals. Now, even creatures below human immortal weren't worthy of Yang Chun personally taking action. The old devil's sins of killing back then had very appropriately made up for this shortcoming of Yang Chun. The quality of the creatures that the old devil had killed wasn't high, but the number was absolutely jaw-dropping. Legend had it that when he was at his most ruthless, an area with a radius of 500,000 kilometers in the spirit realm was completely barren, and not a single life was spared. After all, devils and demons in the spirit world were no longer at odds with each other. If they hadn't been so ruthless and infuriated, the old devil wouldn't have been slain to defend the Tao. The murderous aura was a joke to Yang Chun. Even when the old devil was at his most rampant, he had never thought that he could kill a grand supreme mystic immortal, but Yang Chun had already beheaded the previous Jade Emperor long ago. Other than replenishing the Immortal beheading saber's killing intent, the killing intent sealed in the guillotine did not affect Yang Chun at all. In his sea of consciousness, as the killing intent from the guillotine surged in, the blood-red river also began to slowly change. If the long river was originally just a blood-red river quietly staying in the river channel, then now the river had begun to flow slowly. There seemed to be different levels in the river. At first, the blood river had settled at the bottom, but there was now a lighter color of blood at the top, making the original blood water look even deeper. It gave the feeling that the sun was shining through the water. The deeper the water was, the less the sunlight could reach it. As the blood river changed, the flowing water seemed to have an indescribable sharpness to it. It felt like no matter how solid the riverbank was, it would always be sliced away layer by this flowing water. The blade of the black-blue Immortal beheading saber began to shine brighter and brighter, and then it became mottled, as if it had been carefully sharpened, but wasn't particularly neat. Even at a distance, ordinary people could feel the sharpness of the blade. Xiao Tian had suddenly appeared at some point, and this was the first time it had taken the initiative to appear. It happily coiled around the blade, and its long tongue licked the sharp blade, as if there was some delicious delicacy on it. The infinite killing intent was sealed in the blade, and it was cleansed back and forth. With the refining process of Yang Chun, it was thoroughly integrated into Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. An invisible blade light soared into the sky, and it seemed that someone was waving an invisible blade in the sky. In the sky above Yang Chun, within a radius of hundreds of feet, no birds dared to fly over his head. On the surrounding flat ground, as long as the living creatures could move, they had fled far away from the beginning. There were only some immobile plants left. From the time Yang Chun began to absorb the killing intent, there were constantly tiny debris flying up. The invisible blade had completely destroyed all the vitality around it, and even the body began to collapse under the occasional escape of the blade energy. Looking from the air, the place where Yang Chun refined the immortal beheading saber for a few miles had directly become a barren circle with no grass growing. The original stones on the ground had already been crushed by the blade energy, and it had completely turned into the finest desert. With the original blood river as the base, the killing intent in the guillotine merged very quickly. Despite this, it still took a certain amount of time for Yang Chun to fully absorb the killing intent. It took Yang Chun almost a year to really refine and fuse the guillotine, and half of the killing intent was also absorbed by Yang Chun during this year. The rest were some blood-colored particles that were almost solidified into substance, mixed in the blood river, flowing slowly with the blood water, as if there were many more floating stars in the river. If these wanted to be completely assimilated, they must be integrated bit by bit in the killing. After all, this kind of low-level killing and the killing in the immortal beheading platform were not on the same level at all. No matter how much others killed, Yang Chun had to personally feel the kind of real killing before he could fully integrate it. In other words, Yang Chun also needed to create a lot of killing in the spiritual world. A year later, Yang Chun finished refining the immortal beheading saber. After a few twists and turns, he arrived at an unfamiliar place. This was the place where Yang Chun and Elderly had agreed to meet. The rewards that the mysterious Heaven sect had given to Yang Chun were to be handed over to Yang Chun here. There were 2 alchemy furnaces refined by the mysterious Heaven sect's refining experts, more than 100 jade slips that recorded the experiences of the mysterious Heaven sect's alchemy experts, and dozens of pill recipes. These were personal support for Yang Chun in alchemy. In addition, there were dozens of high-level cultivation techniques of all types. They were all carefully selected by Elderly and might be suitable for Yang Chun. In addition, there were almost an entire small cosmos bag of various materials, all of which were high-grade goods. These were also for Yang Chun's small treasury. These were all Elderly's personal support for Yang Chun. This time, Elderly also brought a large amount of resources that the mysterious Heaven sect secretly supported Chunyang Palace. There was no need to talk about spirit stones. There were all kinds of high and low-grade alchemy and refining materials, as well as tens of thousands of cultivation techniques, formations, and pill scriptures of various attributes. As long as they had these resources, it would not be a problem to support a medium-sized sect. The mysterious Heaven sect also spared no effort in cultivating their own reserve team.